Chapter 195. Sikong Mingyue's battle intent surged as he lunged towards the inn Qin Wentian was in. Battle, he had to personally wash away the humiliation Qin Wentian had given him. At the same time, he wanted to regain his confidence and untie the knot in his heart. Xiaolan, Yi Wuk and Xiao Lok were all staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Although they weren't the ones who wanted to kill Qin Wentian back then, Qin Wentian's luck was truly too good. Even after being stabbed in the heart, he didn't die, and even reappeared after disappearing for a period of time. However, even after hearing Sikong Mingyue's arrogant words, Qin Wentian still sat there quietly, drinking his wine, treating Sikong Mingyue as heir. Teacher, let bygones be bygones. We should look forward to the future. Qin Wentian could feel Mustang's gloomy mood, and he tried to persuade him. He was afraid that his teacher would be too impulsive. Mustang inclined his head and glanced at Qin Wentian. He didn't expect that this disciple of his would be able to see through his thoughts. Smiling, he replied, look forward to the future. However, some debts have to be repaid. The two of them conversed as though there was no one else present. The battle in the air and on the ground didn't attract their attention at all. Even Sikong Mingyue's challenge was directly ignored. This caused Sikong Mingyue's countenance to turn unsightly. His battle intent grew stronger and stronger, and with a wave of his palms, an ancient slaughter imprint appeared, blasting towards the space above the heads of Qin Wentian and Mustang. With a deafening boom, the roof of the inn was directly smashed into smithereens. Above Qin Wentian and Mustang was the sky. A few silhouettes appeared beside Qin Wentian and Mustang, floating in the air. Rain, who was clad in white, was among them. These were the Yuanfu students of the Emperor Star Academy. Upon seeing Xiaolan and the rest staring at Qin Wentian like tigers preying on their prey, they immediately rushed over to protect him. After the previous lesson, the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't allow Qin Wentian to be in a chaotic battle again. This was to prevent him from being ambushed by experts. Looks like I overestimated you. Sikong Mingyue swept his gaze across the crowd, as a calm smile appeared on his face. He wasn't angered at all. Since Qin Wentian didn't dare to fight, there was no need for Sikong Mingyue to be angered. However, with the current situation today, even if Qin Wentian didn't want to fight, it would be difficult for him to do so. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't hear Sikong Mingyue's words. In truth, when he saw Sikong Mingyue stepping out to challenge him, he didn't care about him at all. Although Sikong Mingyue was extremely powerful, with Qin Wentian's current understanding of his own strength, he should be able to deal with him easily. Hence, the current him didn't even view Sikong Mingyue as a worthy opponent. Naturally, this wasn't the reason why Qin Wentian didn't want to fight. Even if he didn't view Sikong Mingyue as a worthy opponent, he would still be able to deal with Sikong Mingyue in passing. The reason why he didn't act was because he wanted to sit down and drink with Teacher Mustang. From the gloomy tone of Teacher Mustang's voice, Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel a little sad. As a disciple, he wasn't doing his job well. If it wasn't for Teacher Mustang back then, how would there be the current Qin Wentian? Teacher. Qin Wentian didn't try to persuade Mustang any further. He continued to pour wine for Mustang, and the two of them drank mouthful after mouthful, feeling extremely satisfied. In my entire life, the thing I'm most proud of is having all of you as my disciples. Although I didn't teach you guys much, especially you. In fact, I didn't even do what a teacher should do. Mustang placed his wine cup down, as he smiled at Qin Wentian. After which, he slowly stood up, and his gaze abruptly turned sharp as he swept his gaze onto Yi Wuk, Wuchong Wang Tung, as well as Xiaolan. At this moment, Mustang's gaze was incomparably sharp, as though it could penetrate through a person. An intense killing intent radiated from him. Not only did he want to kill Yi Wuk, he also wanted to kill Wuchong, Wang Tung, and Xiaolan. If it wasn't for Xiaolan, the royal clan wouldn't have dared to fall out with the Emperor Star Academy so quickly. However, Mustang was very clear on how difficult it was to kill Xiaolan. Not to mention his own strength, the power he represented was something that even the Emperor Star Academy couldn't afford to offend. The Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace was like a gigantic mountain pressing down on him. He knew that even if the Emperor Star Academy dared to kill Chu Tianjiao, they wouldn't dare to be too ruthless towards Xiaolan. even if Xiaolon was here to destroy the Emperor Star Academy. Although this was a tragedy, it was the truth. Xiaolon could only rely on himself to deal with the Emperor Star Academy, while the 9 Mystical Palace stood in the shadows. If they killed Xiaolon, what the Emperor Star Academy would have to face would be the wrath of the Xiao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace. Many buildings in the surroundings collapsed one after another, causing the shop owners to feel heartache. However, in the face of these 2 gigantic existences, they could only concede defeat. In the air above Sake Street, other than the 2 combatants, there were also 2 old men standing opposite each other. Both of them were exceedingly powerful, and just by standing there, they gave off the feeling that they were as tall as a mountain. They had always been in this area, and the royal clan was prepared to attack the Emperor Star Academy at any moment. It was just that the Emperor Star Academy had broken the stalemate earlier than planned. Their preparations are truly ample. Xiaolon glanced at the 4 old men standing in the air, as he stomped heavily on the ground. In an instant, spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the surface of the inn he was in. The cracks spread out rapidly, and in an instant, rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the inn he was in collapsed, transforming into a pile of rubble. In his eyes, killing intent could be seen. Fine, since the Emperor Star Academy had long prepared for this battle, let's fight then. He also hoped to settle things as soon as possible. With the departure of the Azure Emperor Palace, Xiaolon gradually lost his patience. Could it be that the Emperor Star Academy really didn't have any secrets regarding the Azure Emperor? I want Qin Wentian alive. Kill the others without mercy. Xiaolon calmly stated. He could faintly sense that there were some secrets hidden on the body of Qin Wentian. As the sound of Xiaolan's voice faded, the people around him stepped out. In an instant, a dazzling display of astral souls caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The Crown Prince of Snowcloud, Xiao LV. This was the first time he made a move. The astral souls hovering above his head were exceptionally dazzling. They were actually zither astral souls. A melody abruptly gushed forth, and in an instant, a desolate killing intent permeated the air. This melody enveloped the people around him, as though it was able to strengthen their will to fight. Wang Teng Wucheng and Sikong Mingyue all entered a mysterious state of mind. However, the only thing Qin Wentian and the rest could feel was a towering killing intent. A raging wind gusted by, as reinforcements arrived from afar. These reinforcements were none other than the alliance leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Shuelingfeng, and the alliance leader of the Azura Alliance, Dui Dao. They had been paying attention to Xiao LV. Very quickly, both sides clashed against each other. Dui Dao has also broken through. Sensing the aura emanating from Dui Dao, Mustang could tell that he was at the 3rd level of Yuanfu. Mustang stood up, and his astral souls erupted forth as he walked towards Yiwuk. Yiwuk similarly released his astral souls. Although he was arrogant, he would never underestimate his opponents. This was especially so for Mustang, who was a teacher of the Emperor Star Academy. Although Mustang's talent couldn't be compared to his, Mustang had been at the Yuanfu realm for so many years. Not only that, Mustang's cultivation base was at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, the same level as some of the top-tier students. The 2 of them instantly clashed against each other, both of them exuding a terrifying killing intent. Mustang's attacks were more experienced, while Yiwuk's attacks were more domineering. Naturally, Yiwuk was clearly at a disadvantage. Qin Wentian stood there, watching the battle between Mustang and Yiwuk. Seeing how Mustang risked his life to kill Yiwuk, he understood his teacher's intentions. He didn't move, and only stood there watching Mustang. He didn't wish to see any mishaps befall his teacher. From afar, there were many spectators paying attention to this battle. Although they weren't the strongest, the 2 of them were the most famous in the royal capital. The 9 Mystical Palace Xiaolon, the Emperor Star Academy Qin Wentian. Currently, the 9 Mystical Palace was no longer a secret in the royal capital. Xiaolon was a member of that terrifying power. And now, Xiaolon had given the order to capture Qin Wentian alive. As for the others, they were to be killed without mercy. You really have the mood to be so carefree. Sikong Mingyue had yet to act. He had an intense obsession in his heart, and this obsession was none other than Qin Wentian. However, at this moment, a shadowy figure abruptly appeared behind Qin Wentian. It was as though he had always been there. Evidently, he wouldn't allow the incident of Qin Wentian's death to happen again. Sikong Mingyue's gaze froze as he stared at the shadowy figure. Could it be that he really couldn't touch Qin Wentian today? Sikong Mingyue laughed, as hints of mockery could be heard in his voice. What he didn't know was that at this moment, Qin Wentian was looking at him with a strange look in his eyes. It was as though he was looking at someone courting death. After which, under the watchful eyes of Sikong Mingyue, Qin Wentian's silhouette slowly floated up into the air. Yuanfu. The hearts of the spectators trembled as they witnessed this scene. Qin Wentian had officially stepped into Yuanfu, who his cultivation speed is truly fast. Many in the crowd sighed. If this was the case, Qin Wentian should already have the strength to contend against Sikong Mingyue. That's good. Sikong Mingyue's astral soul erupted forth. His third astral soul shone with a faint golden light. This astral soul originated from the fourth heavenly layer, and it was a demonic beast astral soul, Sword Eagle. Ranked 316 in the Warbeast Index, Sword Eagle focuses on offense. Qin Wentian muttered in a low voice as he stared at the demonic beast astral soul. The first and second astral souls were respectively Seven Slaughter's astral soul and Sword astral soul, both originated from the third heavenly layer. As for the third astral soul, Sword Eagle, originated from the fourth heavenly layer. No wonder Sikong Mingyue wanted to battle so badly. Such a combination of astral souls, in the entire Chu country, was truly terrifying. Seems like you're quite knowledgeable. After today's battle, I shall wash away the humiliation I suffered in the past. Sikong Mingyue drew in a deep breath. His three astral souls seemed as though they were about to materialize. Compared to when he was at the arterial circulation realm, the amplification effect was also much stronger. A terrifying killing intent radiated out from Sikong Mingyue's body. The terrifying sharpness of his astral souls gushed towards Qin Wentian, and the crowd only saw a beam of light flashing past. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue's entire body was enveloped by a halo of slaughter, incomparably dazzling. In the blink of an eye, the beam of light bore down on Qin Wentian. His body was akin to a sword, as he slashed out. The pupils of the crowd involuntarily narrowed. Under this strike, would Qin Wentian's body be sliced into two? A demonic light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. A terrifying gust of wind blew against his long hair, as a blood-colored intent permeated his palms. Right now he could easily activate the power of his bloodline. Within his body, the Yuanfu that was connected to the demon's sovereign astral soul roared, as terrifying amounts of astral energy gushed forth. The crowd only saw Qin Wentian lifting his palms, as a palm imprint blasted out, causing the faces of many to pale. Wasn't Qin Wentian a little too arrogant? Rumble. Sikong Mingyue, who was brimming with a terrifying killing intent, slashed towards Qin Wentian's palm imprint. However, his body halted, as the gigantic palm imprint seemed to contain a boundless amount of energy, causing him to be unable to advance any further. What kind of palm was this? It was even more terrifying than a mountain. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue's countenance lost all color. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wentian, only to see that his opponent was still as calm as before. Other than the fact that his eyes had turned a little demonic, there weren't many fluctuations to his countenance. Only now did Sikong Mingyue understand the meaning behind Qin Wentian's indifferent gaze. It was as though he was looking at the eyes of a dead man. You are truly seeking death. Qin Wentian calmly spat out. Sikong Mingyue's body abruptly trembled, as though he had sensed danger, as he retreated backwards. Only to see Qin Wentian lifting his palms once again, as a terrifying surge of demonic qi could be sensed in his palms. His palms were akin to the palms of a demonic beast, as they blasted out. Kuji imprint. Given Qin Wentian's terrifying physique, as well as the explosive astral energy in his palms, how terrifying would the might of this attack be? Desolation, desolation, a true annihilation. Sikong Mingyue's palms were directly crushed apart as the palm imprint slammed into his body. After which, the spectators only saw Sikong Mingyue's body trembling weakly in the air as he slowly descended from the skies. Sikong Mingyue, one of the duo prides of Snowcloud, a demon-level genius whose third astral soul originated from the fourth heavenly layer. Today, did he want to wash away the humiliation he had suffered? When the crowd saw the Kuji imprint crushing Sikong Mingyue to death, the impact they felt was indescribable. Chapter 196. In the air, Qin Wentian quietly floated there. It was as though what he had done was an insignificant thing that wasn't even worth mentioning. The disparity between the two of them was too great. Just like back then when they were both at the 9th level of arterial circulation. Sikong Mingyue couldn't even withstand a single strike. Now it was the same. As for Qin Wentian, he hadn't even released his astral souls yet. Many in the crowd were speculating that the astral souls Sikong Mingyue had condensed were from the 3rd heavenly layer, 3rd heavenly layer and 4th heavenly layer respectively. What about Qin Wentian? His first 2 astral souls were condensed from the 3rd and 4th heavenly layer respectively. What about his 3rd astral soul? Yuanfu realm. That unyielding youth is finally going to welcome his era. Someone sighed in their hearts. Stepping into Yuanfu indicated that Qin Wentian had already started his path of cultivation. From today onwards, no one in Chu would dare to underestimate this youth. At this moment, in the airspace above the Emperor Star Academy, a silhouette stood there. This person was none other than the headmaster of the Emperor Star Academy, Dai. He had personally witnessed the battle, and he had also seen how easily Qin Wentian slew Sikong Mingyue. The him at this moment only felt an incomparably complicated feeling in his heart. Turning back, he gazed at a maiden standing behind him. This maiden was clad in a pure and flawless feather robe, with a veil covering her face. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind, and her lithe figure was enough to cause any man to go crazy. She stood there casually, yet no one dared to have any profane thoughts towards her. Dai had long since discovered the existence of such an extraordinary maiden in the Emperor Star Academy. She had arrived together with Qin Wentian, yet she had yet to reveal herself. After seeing her, Dai understood that the 3,000 years of waiting had finally come to an end. The mission of the generations of students had finally been accomplished. In the future, I will temporarily hand him over to you. Dai turned and spoke to the extraordinary maiden in front of him. Qing'er still had no expression on her face. She was as cold as ever, as though she would always be like this. Okay. Lightly nodding her head, she spoke only a single word. She was as reticent as ever, but this single word gave people a sense of security. It was as if she would definitely do what she said. Godfather. Below, Ren Qianqing's eyes were red as he looked at Dai and asked, "Do we really have to do this?" Dai slowly shifted his gaze onto Ren Qianqing below, as a gentle smile appeared in his eyes. He suddenly thought of many things in the past. He thought back to when he was young and frivolous. At that time, he obeyed the instructions of his elders and came to the Emperor Star Academy. Back then, he had also lived a life of debauchery. Finally, he became the guardian of the Emperor Star Academy, and knew his mission. As one of the hidden branches of the Azure faction, they had never truly appeared in the Azure Emperor Palace before. Other than members of the Azure Emperor Palace, no one else knew of their existence. The mission of this branch was to either obtain the inheritance of the Azure Emperor, or protect it until that person appeared. Now he had waited for the right moment. Qianqing, the Emperor Star Academy, has nurtured too many geniuses throughout these years, standing at the pinnacle of Chu, and finally reaching this stage. Dai smiled as he looked at Ren Qianqing. This is already the best ending we could hope for. Is this really the best ending? Ren Qianqing sighed deeply. He truly couldn't bear to part with the Emperor Star Academy. Okay, let's watch the final battle of the students of my Emperor Star Academy. Dai smiled as he gazed into the horizons. Over there, the battle was still as intense as ever. From the initial skirmishes on the streets, it had now escalated into a true grand battle. Even Xiaolon didn't expect this to happen. Go and deal with the person behind him. Xiaolon spoke to an old man beside him. That old man nodded his head lightly as he walked towards the direction of Qin Wentian. The shadowy figure behind Qin Wentian took a step forward. Both of them moved at the same time, moving to the side. If they were to engage in a battle here, It was inevitable that the shockwaves would implicate the people on their side. This was something they didn't want to see. With that, there was no one left beside Qin Wentian. Xiao Lu's silhouette flickered as he dashed towards the direction of Qin Wentian. However, the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Xerox, blocked his path. The two of them clashed madly, but Xerox was suppressed by Xiao Lu, who was at the same cultivation level as him. Qin Wentian still didn't make a move. He had been observing the battle between Mustang and Yi Wuck. Currently, Mustang had the upper hand, and was unleashing a frenzied barrage of attacks against Yi Wuck. Yi Wuck retreated step by step, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. Mustang wanted to fight to the death with him, and each of his attacks were extremely ruthless, disregarding his own safety in order to kill Yi Wuck. At this moment, a cold glint of light flashed in Yi Wuck's eyes as his killing intent gushed forth. Mustang's palm strike was even more terrifying than a sharp sword, blasting towards the location of Yi Wuck's heart. At this moment, Yi Wuck didn't dodge, he allowed Mustang's attack to land on his body. Cracking sounds rang out as Yi Wuck's robes were shredded into pieces. The palm imprint directly slammed into the location of his heart, but the terrifying force of the palm strike was unable to penetrate into his body. This was because Yi Wuck was wearing a divine armor that the Yi clan had paid a hefty price to forge for him. This was a third-ranked divine armor that was able to greatly weaken the power of attacks. Die! Yi Wuck roared in rage, as he slashed out with his sword, aiming for Mustang's head. However, how experienced was Mustang? At the instant he blasted out his attack, he waved his palms, causing a raging gale to kick up as a row of palm imprints appeared in front of him. Yi Wuck's sword strike pierced right into the palm imprints, yet it only managed to penetrate into Mustang's body, forcing him to retreat backwards. But at the same time, Yi Ran, who was standing at the side, was already prepared. At the instant Mustang was forced back, Yi Ran had already made his preparations. Mustang's countenance turned ashen, as he hurriedly slashed out with his palms. A beam of cold light flashed past, but the raging flames still blasted into his body, causing him to groan in agony. Die! Yi Wuck stabbed out with a finger, as a five-colored sword light shot out, wanting to lacerate Mustang's head. However, at this moment, a terrifying palm imprint blasted out from behind Mustang. The Kuji imprint gushed forth with a frenzied speed, engulfing the sword light as it lunged towards Yi Wuck, causing Yi Wuck's countenance to sink as he retreated backwards. Qin Wentian. Yi Wuck's eyes flashed with a cold light when he saw that the person who attacked was Qin Wentian. How tenacious! Not far away, Xiaolon smiled as he stared at Qin Wentian. After which he stepped out, like a gentle breeze, moving towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian abruptly felt a sense of danger. He glanced at Xiaolon and abruptly, he felt a bolt of lightning blasting into his mind, causing Qin Wentian to close his eyes. Careful! Mustang shouted. Qin Wentian similarly felt the sense of danger. Gathering his strength, the blood-colored inscriptions around him surged as demonic qi gushed forth from him. His palms blasted out in a frenzy, exuding an indomitable aura. Xiaolan's attack arrived as well, akin to a million bolts of lightning. Qin Wentian groaned in agony as he felt a destructive force gushing into his body, gushing towards his sea of consciousness. Qin Wentian retreated explosively. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Xiaolon calmly looking at him. His countenance was filled with coldness, as though he was unexcelled in the world. Xiaolon, a genius from the 9 Mystical Palace with a cultivation base at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, was able to easily suppress Shuelingfeng, who was at the 3rd level of Yuanfu from the Emperor Star Academy. From this, one could see how tyrannical his combat prowess was. Ordinary cultivators at the 3rd level of Yuanfu wouldn't be able to compare to him. His hasty actions naturally caused Qin Wentian to be completely suppressed, and he only suffered light injuries. I thought that after you fled, you would never appear again. Who would have thought that you would return by yourself? Do you really think that I wouldn't dare to kill you? Xiaolon coldly spoke, his robes fluttering in the wind. Many experts gathered around Qin Wentian, as well as experts from the 9 Mystical Palace. You want to kill him? At this moment, a voice drifted over. The crowd inclined their heads, only to see a few silhouettes walking over from the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. The person in the lead was none other than the headmaster of the Emperor Star Academy, Dai. Dai's gaze shifted downwards, locking gazes with Xiaolon as he indifferently stated, "When will you be able to kill him?" Xiaolon furrowed his brows, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. There was actually someone in the Emperor Star Academy who dared to speak to him in such a manner? "As long as I'm willing, I can kill him any time. Based on his strength, how can he resist?" Xiaolan's gaze sharpened as he arrogantly stated, "Are you saying that with your cultivation base at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, you want him, who's only at the 1st level of Yuanfu, to fight you one-on-one? The people from the Emperor Star Academy won't interfere?" Dai coldly stated. "Even if you want to interfere, if I want to kill him, do you think the Emperor Star Academy can stop me?" Xiaolon stared at Dai, as arrogant as ever. In Chu, no matter what he, Xiaolon, wanted to do, would there be anyone who could stop him? He had already planned to make the Emperor Star Academy submit, let alone a mere Qin Wentian. "Is that so?" Dai's countenance was as calm as ever. Nobody knew what he was thinking, and in fact, there were only a few who recognized him. "Then let me tell you right now. If you dare to take another step forward, Xiaolon will no longer exist in the 9 Mystical Palace," Dai calmly stated. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire space abruptly turned silent. Countless people inclined their heads, staring at Dai before shifting their gazes onto Xiaolon. Dai had said that as long as Xiaolon took another step forward, he would die. Xiaolon also stared at Dai. Since Dai knew his identity, why did he still dare to speak such arrogant words? Threats. He, Xiaolon, was actually being threatened in this tiny Chu country. If he took a step forward, would he? What if his opponent was a heavenly dipper sovereign? As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the arrogance in Xiaolan's heart wavered. After all, this place wasn't the 9 Mystical Palace. This was the Chu country outside of the Emperor Star Academy. If he died, even if the 9 Mystical Palace destroyed the Emperor Star Academy, so what? "Weren't you very arrogant? Why aren't you saying anything?" Dai calmly continued. At this moment, the battles had all ceased. Everyone was seriously scrutinizing Dai. A Dai that no one had ever seen before. Maybe Luo Qianqiu had seen him before in the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Not far behind Dai, a veiled maiden casually stood in the air, resembling a celestial maiden. This caused the crowd to speculate, who was she? Chapter 197. Silence. At this moment, the entire space was deathly silent. Dai simply stood there, staring disdainfully at Xiaolon. Xiaolon similarly stared at Dai. Yet he didn't dare to take a single step forward. An old man walked out, but he didn't walk towards Dai. Instead, he walked towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, the aura exuding from him caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The aura exuded by this old man was clearly at the upper 3rd level of Yuanfu. Qin Wentian stared at the old man walking towards him, yet he didn't move a single step. Today, when Fan Lu invited him over to watch the show, he didn't expect that this would be a battle between the Emperor Star Academy and the Royal Clan. Naturally, the Royal Clan was backed by Xiaolon and the 9 Mystical Palace. Since Teacher Mustang allowed him to come out, he believed in the Emperor Star Academy. Hence, he merely stood there calmly. The silhouette of the old man whistled through the air towards Qin Wentian, as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. However, at the same time, he was wary of Dai, who was standing in the air. Dai's palms trembled, and in an instant, the crowd saw a gigantic palm descending from the skies, smashing downwards at a speed so fast that the eyes of the spectators couldn't even follow it. The old man abruptly inclined his head, as a powerful tempest erupted forth. However, that terrifying palm directly slammed into his body. That palm abruptly clenched into a fist, and instantly, the body of the old man was caught in the grasp of the golden palm, unable to escape. The old man struggled madly, as an expression of terror could be seen in his eyes. At this moment, he was no longer a fearsome expert, but a pitiful old man, trapped in the grasp of that golden palm, waiting to be slaughtered. In the air, Dai's palm also stretched out, as though he was in the exact same posture as the golden palm below. Reckless fool. Dai faintly spoke, as he abruptly clenched his fist. The golden palm similarly tightened, and a cracking sound rang out as the silhouette of the old man vanished from sight. The golden palm opened up, and only drops of fresh blood could be seen within it. It had been directly crushed into pieces, drifting with the wind. A powerful Yuanfu cultivator, in front of Dai, was like an ant, easily slaughtered. This had a huge impact on everyone. Was this the legendary Heavenly Dipper realm expert? His strength was too shocking. How powerful! Qin Wentian's heart trembled as well. Was that gigantic palm made of golden constellations and astral nova? Even in his wildest dreams, Qin Wentian would have never imagined that the old man in slumber atop the staircase of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, whose entire body was covered in dust, would actually be so powerful. Not only that, back then when he faced Yuhan's Han, he was extremely low profile. From Qin Wentian's point of view, it wasn't that he didn't have the strength. It was just that he had been restraining himself. As for why he had been restraining himself, Qin Wentian didn't know. He definitely wouldn't think that it was because of him. Xiaolan's heart also felt an intense impact. To think that there was actually such a powerful expert in the Emperor Star Academy of Chu. Qin Wentian stared at Dai, forcing himself to remain calm as he continued. Do you really have no qualms about dealing with people from the 9 mystical palace like this? One more word and you'll die. Dai stared at Xiaolan as he spat out another sentence, causing Xiaolan's countenance to stiffen as his countenance contorted. Earlier, Dai forbade him from taking a single step forward. And now, Dai forbade him from speaking again. If not, he would die. Xiaolan had never suffered such humiliation before. However, at this moment he could only endure it. The hands of the 9 mystical palace have stretched too far. Do you really think that the Emperor Star Academy can be bullied as you wish? Dai's palms trembled as his terrifying astral nova transformed into a golden bolt of lightning, shooting towards another old man. This old man was also one of the strongest experts here. That old man's countenance drastically changed as he frenziedly circulated his energy. However, when the astral nova slammed into him, he had no way to resist at all. His body dissipated into nothingness, vanishing from the face of the heavens and earth. However, Dai did not stop there. The golden lightning continued to dance in the void, and with a few terrifying tremors, another 2 terrifying figures fell. Silence filled the air. Not a single person dared to make a single move. This was especially so for those from the Royal Academy. They didn't expect that the situation today would be like this. As long as Dai willed it, he could kill all of them. That golden palm floated in the air. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Xiaolan's heart was filled with rage, yet he still kept his mouth shut, not daring to utter a single word. The golden palm whistled through the air, grabbing hold of Xiaolan's body. In that instant, Xiaolan's heart pounded violently as an expression of terror appeared on his face. He had personally witnessed Dai killing without batting an eyelid. He was truly afraid. The hearts of everyone present tensed up. That golden palm lifted Xiaolan up in the air. Yet Dai's countenance didn't change in the slightest. He spoke to Xiaolan. If you leave the 9 mystical palace, you won't even know how you died. Yet you still dare to flaunt your arrogance here? If you truly have the ability, you shouldn't be flaunting it in the Chu country. Today, I will temporarily spare your life. However, if you dare to do anything that infuriates me again in the future, I can guarantee that unless you never appear in the 9 continents again, you will never be able to eat or sleep in peace. As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the golden palm abruptly smashed out, instantly flinging Xiaolan through the air. Scram from Chu. A cold voice rang out in Xiaolan's mind. His body flipped several times in the air before he stabilized himself. Right now, Xiaolan's countenance was ashen. The humiliation he felt was so great that he wanted to go crazy. But right now, he could only endure it. Emperor Star Academy. Xiaolan's eyes flickered with the flames of hatred. In the end, he didn't dare to turn his head back. Bringing along with him boundless humiliation, he departed. Dai's gaze then shifted onto the others. Those from the royal clan as well as those from the Royal Academy. At this moment, all of them were trembling with fear in their hearts. As long as Dai willed it, all of them would die. All of you scram. Dai calmly spoke, causing those from the royal clan to feel as though they had just been pardoned. They transformed into wisps of smoke and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. In the end, I still decided to spare them. Mustang clenched his fists as he sighed. Inclining his head, he stared at Dai in the air as he asked, "Headmaster, why didn't you kill them?" In Mustang's tone, traces of anger could be heard. "I hope that all of you will be able to live on peacefully." Dai glanced at Mustang, his words causing Mustang's countenance to stiffen. After which, he drew in a deep breath and bowed to Dai. "Mustang knows his mistake. Don't worry, there's always been an old monster in the royal clan. Let's return to the academy." Dai faintly spoke. The others in Chu might not be clear, but he had lived for so many years, and had stayed in the royal capital for so many years. Although only a few people knew of him, with regards to every single blade of grass and every tree in the royal capital, no one was clearer than Dai. Who were the strongest in the royal capital? Dai was clearer than anyone else. He had always known that there was an old monster in the royal clan who had been in closed-door seclusion for many years. If he really went on a killing spree, nothing would happen to him. But what about those from the Emperor Star Academy? Those from the Emperor Star Academy gradually returned. The weaker students also gathered together as they stared at the legendary figure in the air. This was their headmaster. With a wave of his hand, he could slaughter the entire world. How imposing was that? Dai gazed at the crowd below, as a gentle smile appeared on his face. After watching over the academy for so many years, his feelings towards it were no weaker than anyone else's. However, today he had no choice but to make a decision. The Emperor Star Academy has a history of over 3,000 years, and has experienced too many trials and tribulations. However, in these 3,000 years, the Emperor Star Academy has always stood at the peak of the Chu country. I'm extremely proud of our achievements. Dai calmly spoke. Silence filled the air, as everyone quietly listened to his words. However, today, I have no choice but to make an important decision. From today onwards, the Emperor Star Academy will be disbanded. What? Why? As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the countenances of the crowd changed. Bewilderment, and bewilderment could be seen on their faces. Disbanding? Why? Only to see Dai waving his hands as the commotion gradually died down. Dai continued. I know that all of you are reluctant to part with the Emperor Star Academy. However, given the current situation, the Emperor Star Academy is no longer suitable to exist in Chu. Disbanding the Emperor Star Academy is a decision I've made after careful consideration. However, don't be disheartened. All of you have outstanding talent, which is why you are able to stand here today. The outside world is vast, and there are countless powers stronger than the Emperor Star Academy. Qin Wentian calmly listened to Dai's words, an indescribable feeling in his heart. Beside him, Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lo were all present. Teacher, did you already know about this? Qin Wentian murmured as he sighed. Headmaster Dai did this in order to protect the students. If this continued, the unlucky ones would be the students. They would bleed to death, and in addition, the headmaster had no choice but to kill those from the 9 Mystical Palace to intimidate the Emperor Star Academy. Mustang sighed. Dai had killed several experts from the 9 Mystical Palace. There was no need for Xiaolon to act. The 9 Mystical Palace had too many methods to deal with the students of the Emperor Star Academy. As for the reason why Dai spared Xiaolon, it was because he knew that once Xiaolon died, even if the Emperor Star Academy was disbanded, the Xiao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace would still be able to find those who were disbanded. As long as Xiaolon didn't die, the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't dare to be too ruthless. Dai's actions were obviously done after careful consideration. In fact, he had other considerations as well. Because of the secret of the Azure Emperor, Dai knew that there were many pairs of eyes staring at the Emperor Star Academy. Under such circumstances, disbanding the Emperor Star Academy was a helpless move. Naturally, the reason why Dai stood out today and made such a decision was all because of Qin Wentian. He had already ended the mission of the Emperor Star Academy. All of you will have a better future. Children, take care of yourselves. Dai laughed. After which, He slowly walked towards the back mountain of the Emperor Star Academy, leaving behind the students of the Emperor Star Academy, who were still in a daze. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath as he stared at the departing figure of Dai. His eyes flashed with sharpness as he stated, "I'm not willing to let the Emperor Star Academy disappear just like that." Outside the royal capital of Chu, Xiaolan was riding on a demonic beast. He was truly preparing to leave. He no longer had the face to remain in this place of humiliation. In the heart of Xiaolan, there was also an intense unwillingness. Beside him, there were several experts protecting him. They didn't dare to speak for fear of angering Xiaolan. Who? At this moment, the countenance of one of the guards froze. However, as the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying silhouette flickered past, and with a light sound, the guard's head instantly exploded. In an instant, the other guards frenziedly unleashed their auras. However, as the sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly, the guards fell one after another. Xiaolan's body trembled slightly, staring at the silhouette before him. His countenance turned ashen. "What do you want to do?" "Kill you," that person calmly replied. Xiaolan's eyes flickered with despair as he instantly turned and fled. He only had a single thought in his mind, and that was to flee. Even if he knew that he was in the hands of his opponent, there was no way for him to escape. Indeed, a gigantic palm slammed over. Xiaolan's eyes were filled with despair and terror as his body was crushed into pieces. His head fell from the air. Before Xiaolan died, there was only a single thought in his mind. No one would know who killed him. Xiaolan, he hated him. Chapter 198. The news of the disbandment of the Emperor Star Academy quickly spread throughout the royal capital, causing a huge wave of commotion. The academy that stood at the peak of Chu for 3,000 years was actually disbanded. This caused many to feel a sense of desolation, as they silently sighed for the Emperor Star Academy. Everyone also understood that the disbandment of the Emperor Star Academy was something they had no choice but to do. With the royal clan suppressing them, and with the backing of the Nine Mystical Palace, the headmaster of the Emperor Star Academy, Dai's domineering attitude, killing the experts of the Nine Mystical Palace would definitely infuriate them. Hence, the Emperor Star Academy had no choice but to disband. At this moment, within the Emperor Star Academy, countless people bid their farewells to each other, their expressions filled with sorrow. Qin Wentian stood on top of a pavilion, gazing at the silhouettes in the distance as he felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. "Why? Are you feeling sad?" Luo Huan walked to Qin Wentian's side, her beautiful eyes gazing into the distance as a faint smile hung on her lips. However, there was a hint of helplessness hidden within. "Sister Luo Huan, what are your plans?" Qin Wentian turned his head to look at her beautiful face as he squeezed out a smile. "Let's go. I plan to go to the Qing continent. I heard that the Nine Mystical Palace is located there. I really want to see how powerful they are." Luo Huan smiled. "What about you? Where do you plan to go? Do you want to come with me?" "No thanks, I still have some unfinished business," Qin Wentian replied in a low voice. Luo Huan contemplated Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian's eyes were clear and deep. She couldn't tell what he was thinking. This fellow had truly grown up. Luo Huan walked forward, stretching out her hands to embrace Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to be stunned. Her beautiful eyes were inches away from his, and her ample bosom pressed against his chest, causing Qin Wentian's face to heat up. "Little fellow, you even know how to be shy," Luo Huan giggled, as she planted a kiss on Qin Wentian's forehead. "Sister, don't you know how charming you are?" Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Luo Huan giggled. After which, she separated herself from Qin Wentian and said, "Little fellow, this elder sister has watched you grow up. In the future, you must definitely become a man of indomitable spirit." "Definitely." Qin Wentian heavily nodded his head. The situation of the Emperor Star Academy being disbanded was something he never wanted to see ever again. "Enough, the two of you can stop being so intimate. Old Ren is waiting for you, Wentian." Mustang walked to the back of the two as he smiled. "Teacher, I'm trying to build a good relationship with junior brother Qin. If not in the future, This fellow might not even acknowledge me as his senior sister. Luo Huan laughed. You're full of wicked ideas. Mustang glared at Luo Huan. However, he was extremely happy in his heart. After Mountain's death, his closest disciples, Qin Wentian and Luo Huan, were undoubtedly two of them. There was also Yu Fei and Fan Le. He hoped that all of them would be fine. However, Yi Wukei, Wu Chong, Wang Tung and the rest were still alive. Mustang was extremely unwilling in his heart. He had yet to avenge Big Mountain. Qin Wentian followed Ren Qianxing to the temporary residence in the mountain and met with Dai. Dai had a smile on his face as he indicated to Qin Wentian, "Take a seat." Qin Wentian nodded his head as he sat opposite Dai. He cast a glance at Ren Qianxing before Ren Qianxing departed. On this mountain peak that overlooked the entire Emperor Star Academy, only Dai and Qin Wentian remained. There are many innate techniques and cultivation arts in the Heavenly Star Pavilion. I've already instructed the teachers of the academy to copy them down and distribute them to the disciples. Here are a few innate techniques, the original versions, for you to cultivate in the future. As for the cultivation arts, I won't be giving them to you. You can go and find one that suits you. Dai retrieved a few innate techniques and passed them to Qin Wentian. His gaze when he looked at Qin Wentian was filled with kindness. "Thank you, headmaster." Qin Wentian didn't stand on ceremony and accepted them. Indeed, he hadn't had the time to go to the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion to cultivate a high-grade Earth-ranked innate technique. "How many Yuanfu do you have now?" Dai stared at Qin Wentian, as a hint of hope flashed in his eyes. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as a strange light flashed in his eyes. So it turned out that Dai already knew about it. 3 Yuanfu. Qin Wentian replied. Momentarily, Dai drew in a deep breath as he heavily patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders. Good. The Azure Emperor finally has a successor. Senior, have you always been guarding the Emperor Star Academy? Qin Wentian curiously asked. Dai nodded his head as he turned to Qin Wentian. You should already know about the Azure Emperor Palace. Back then, after the Azure Emperor died, the Azure Emperor Palace was invaded by external powers, wanting to obtain everything belonging to the Azure Emperor. The Azure faction had no choice but to endure, and at the same time, they secretly sent out a group of infants. Now that a few thousand years have passed, the invading external powers have already become the representatives of the Azure Emperor Palace, while the Azure faction was completely suppressed. But luckily, our ancestor had foresight. After those infants grew up, they continued to multiply, becoming one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace. Before this, no one knew of their existence until a few years ago. The reason for this was because of the conflict between the Emperor Star Academy and the 9 Mystical Palace caused by Luo Tianya. Senior, are you saying that the one who acted back then was one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace? Qin Wentian was somewhat taken aback. At that time, I was still guarding the Heavenly Star Pavilion. As long as the inheritance of the Azure Emperor hasn't been obtained by others, I didn't want to be exposed. But in the end, the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace also found out about it. Luckily, they didn't know too much. Dai laughed. Actually, all these years, the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace have always had people cultivating in the Emperor Star Academy, just like me. It's just that no one knew about it. However, none of them managed to pass the test, and in the end, the inheritance landed in your hands. An expression of bewilderment appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Only now did he understand some of the hidden details. Dai retrieved a medallion with the word Azure engraved on it. He then passed it to Qin Wentian. Although this medallion is under my control, I don't have the authority to use it. But now, I finally have a successor. As Dai spoke, he grabbed hold of Qin Wentian's hand and sliced it with his finger. Instantly, a drop of fresh blood dripped from Qin Wentian's fingertip. Dai placed the medallion on the ground, and as the drop of blood dripped onto the medallion, Qin Wentian discovered, to his astonishment, that in the airspace above the medallion, a map could be seen. From now onwards, this medallion is yours. These maps indicate the location of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor. I hope that you will be able to bring them back to the Azure Emperor Palace and become the successor of the Azure Emperor Palace. You will no longer have to fear the covetous eyes of the other powers in the 9 continents. Dai solemnly passed the medallion to Qin Wentian, causing great waves to rise in Qin Wentian's heart. How strong is this hidden faction? Qin Wentian asked. Dai laughed. I'm not too sure, but at the very least it should be much stronger than the Shao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace. But you have to remember, the hidden faction of the Azure Emperor has to keep a low profile. Back then, there were too many transcendent powers that participated in the assassination of the Azure Emperor. And the majority of them were transcendent powers in the 9 continents. They wouldn't be willing to see the Azure Emperor Palace rise up again. Qin Wentian solemnly noted this down. And one more thing, you are not a direct descendant of the Azure Emperor. If you want to completely control this faction, you still have a long way to go. Dai patted Qin Wentian on his shoulder, causing Qin Wentian to be slightly taken aback. That's right, with his current strength, it wouldn't be easy for him to make those heavenly dipper sovereigns listen to his commands. But you can rest assured that even if you can't control them, at the very least, they won't act against you. They will only watch you grow until they approve of you. I will do my best. Qin Wentian calmed his fluctuating heart as a carefree smile appeared on his face. No one would be able to remain calm in the face of such a situation. The hidden faction of the Azure Emperor Palace would be under his control. Naturally, for this, he would have to shoulder the responsibility of reviving the Azure Emperor Palace. I heard that you and that lass from the Mo clan are in love with each other. This lass has an extraordinary talent in the area of medicinal pills and spiritual herbs. It's just that she has yet to be excavated in Chu. Before I leave, do you want me to be your matchmaker? Dai laughed, causing an expression of awkwardness to appear on Qin Wentian's face. It's still too early. Qin Wentian smiled, his voice trembling. Haha, you're right. In that case, I won't interfere in the matters of you youngsters. Dai laughed, glancing at a beautiful silhouette not far away from him. She simply stood there, as though she didn't exist at all. This caused Dai to not remind Qin Wentian to take care of himself. He knew that Fairy Qingmei had already made her preparations. Qin Wentian also felt that something was strange. He naturally discovered that the beautiful maiden had appeared beside him. However, she didn't say a single word to him, causing him to be somewhat speechless. The disbandment of the Emperor Star Academy caused the royal clan of Chu to be secretly delighted. Although they were shocked by Dai, the Emperor Star Academy no longer existed from now on. The royal clan no longer had a power that had been suppressing them for 3,000 years. Not only that, in recent days, because of Qin Wentian, the Emperor Star Academy had already become enemies with the royal clan. The students of the Emperor Star Academy gradually departed, and the royal clan didn't interfere. They were happy to see such a situation unfold. But also today, outside the Yi clan, a power of the royal clan, there was a life and death letter pasted on the door, challenging Yi Wuke of the Yi clan. The location of the Junlin banquet was the Chu gazing platform, and the person who signed it was none other than Qin Wentian. This news quickly spread throughout the royal capital. Dai's appearance caused him to attract too much attention. It was as though many people had forgotten that the top ranker of the Junlin banquet had already stepped into Yuanfu. Not only that, he had also killed Sikong Mingyue in an extremely tyrannical manner. And now, the most dazzling figure of the Junlin banquet had jumped levels to challenge Yi Wuk, who had already broken through to the 2nd level of Yuanfu. Such news undoubtedly caused people to be filled with excitement. Exactly how strong was Qin Wentian after he stepped into Yuanfu? The words life and death battle caused everyone in the royal capital to feel the intense self-confidence radiating from Qin Wentian. However, this wasn't the end. Following that, another piece of news circulated out. The 2 geniuses of the Royal Academy, Wang Teng and Wu Chong, had both received a life and death battle letter, and the challenger was none other than Qin Wentian. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng were all at the 2nd level of Yuanfu. Back then, they had accompanied Xiaolan to the Emperor Star Academy to challenge cultivators at the 5th level of Yuanfu. The 3 of them had all defeated their opponents. Back then, their opponents were Chiu Mo, the the leader of the Azura Alliance, Du Yidao, and the leader of the Green Cloud Alliance, Ling Hua. After the Junlin banquet, the Chu Emperor district once again attracted the attention of the royal capital. Could that unyielding youth still be as dazzling as he was during the Junlin banquet? Could he continue to trample over those geniuses? Chapter 199. Today, the Chu Emperor district was open to the citizens of the royal capital. Naturally, they knew why the Chu Emperor district was open to the public. Qin Wentian issued a life-and-death challenge to 3 second-level Yuanfu cultivators. How could Yi Wuke and the rest reject it? If Yi Wuke cowered, from now onwards, all the glory he had would fade away. He was Yi Wuke, the most dazzling member of the younger generation of the Yi clan, the future hope of the Yi clan. Naturally, he would accept the challenge. Qin Wentian arrived very early, even earlier than those from the Yi clan. He sat on one of the battle platforms with his eyes closed, appearing very quiet. It was as though he didn't know that his decision had attracted the attention of so many people. Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lo were all here. How could they miss such a battle? Even Chu Tianjiao had arrived. He sat on the azure jadeite dragon seat, staring at the silhouette of Yi Wuke. He wanted to see how Qin Wentian would defeat Yi Wuke, Wu Chong and Wang Teng. Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow had also arrived. Autumn Snow stared at Qin Wentian, an indescribable feeling in her heart. If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would never have imagined that today, Qin Wentian would challenge Yi Wuke. Would she be able to win? She didn't know why, but at this moment, in Autumn Snow's heart, she actually believed that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat Yi Wuke. How much effort did the Emperor Star Academy put in to protect him? Now that he issued a life-and-death challenge, if he died, wouldn't that be a joke? Below the platform, Chiumo's countenance was cold as he stared at Qin Wentian. Back then, he had already had conflicts with Qin Wentian, but now that he saw Qin Wentian growing stronger, he couldn't help but feel extremely bitter in his heart. Luo Huan smiled, as she stared at Chiumo. That's right, Chiumo. You mocked junior brother Qin back then. At that time, you were a Yuanfu cultivator, while junior brother Qin was still at the arterial circulation realm. Now I'm afraid that junior brother Qin could kill you with a single palm strike. Chiumo's countenance stiffened as his countenance turned ashen. He was still at the first level of Yuanfu, yet Qin Wentian had killed Sikong Mingyue with a single palm strike. He could only snort coldly as his heart was filled with jealousy. At this moment, a few figures appeared in the sky. They were none other than Yi Wuke, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng. Yi Wuke was clad in white, looking as handsome as ever. Wu Chong exuded a violent demonic aura, while Wang Teng exuded a tyrannical aura. The three of them stood in the air, staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian. They were all geniuses at the second level of Yuanfu. Yet now, they were being challenged by Qin Wentian, who was only at the first level of Yuanfu. This wasn't something that could bring them any face. When he wanted to be number one, there was nothing that could obstruct his footsteps. Today it was the same as well. Luo Huan and Fan Lo also felt the same way. Absolute trust. Unknowingly, that young man had already caused his friends to have this sort of blind trust in him. This was an unreasonable trust, yet it was something they truly felt in their hearts. Yi Wuke, Wang Teng, and Wu Chong were all stunned. Even Yi Wuke, who had always been indifferent, couldn't help but laugh at this moment. He was laughing at Qin Wentian for not knowing what to do. Your stupidity will cost you your life. Yi Wuke mocked. After which, he turned to the other two. Since he wants to die so badly, let's grant him his wish. The three of them unleashed their 9 astral souls at the same time. The resplendent astral energy caused the spectators to be dazzled. Die. Yi Wuke's low voice rang out, as a tyrannical killing intent gushed forth from him. The three of them simultaneously reversed their positions, and in an instant, a formless storm of killing intent gushed towards Qin Wentian. Yi Wuke's attack was like a sword, incomparably resplendent, penetrating through everything. Wu Chong's attack was like a demonic beast, incomparably tyrannical. His entire person was like a demonic beast, suppressing all his opponents. Wang Teng's attack was like a war chariot of slaughter, pulverizing all those who obstructed him. The storm of killing intent converged together, with the destination being Qin Wentian. The hearts of the spectators pounded madly. It was as though they could see Qin Wentian being crushed into pieces by this terrifying storm of killing intent. That storm of killing intent was howling with rage. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped onto the platform, as a towering aura erupted forth from him. In an instant, demonic qi and blood-colored light enveloped him, as though he was clad in a halo of light. His long, jet-black hair was as straight as a sword. Qin Wentian inclined his head, as a fearsome blood-colored demonic light erupted forth from his eyes, causing the three of them to feel a sense of pressure. However, their killing intent didn't stop. They wanted Qin Wentian to die. Roar! A terrifying howl of rage erupted from Qin Wentian's mouth, as though he wanted to tear apart the heavens and earth. Both his palms blasted out, and the spectators only felt that at this moment, Qin Wentian was akin to an ancient demon. His palms gave off a feeling of invincibility. The last stance of the Thousand Hands imprint, the Great Thousand Hands imprint, exploded forth, causing the entire heavens and earth to be filled with countless gigantic palm imprints. And at the same time, the attacks of the three of them slammed into each other. The terrifying storm of killing intent transformed into an intense astral wind that blasted onto the faces of the spectators, causing them to feel a burning sensation on their faces. At the same time, explosions rang out in the space where they clashed. Qin Wentian's palms propped up the heavens and earth as he stomped on the ground once more. His body actually carried the three of them as he soared up into the skies. Die! A crazed howl of rage rang out, as boundless sword light gushed forth from Qin Wentian's mouth. At the same time, both his palms trembled as another towering palm imprint blasted out. Each and every palm imprint contained a terrifying amount of astral energy. The scene of Qin Wentian carrying the three of them as he soared up into the skies caused an intense visual impact to the spectators. They had an illusion that Qin Wentian was the one with the highest cultivation base. The feeling he gave off was that he was filled with boundless energy. Wang Tung die. The rolling sound waves blasted into the eardrums of the spectators. They only saw Qin Wentian raising his palms towards the skies. The attack he executed was actually only a high-grade human tyrannate technique, the dragon subduing fist, dragon seizing palm. However, when he executed the dragon seizing palm, it was as though he was a true king trying to capture a demonic dragon. That blood-colored palm transformed into a terrifying dragon claw as it grabbed towards Wang Tung. The countenances of Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Wang Tung were incredibly ugly to behold. They roared in rage as their yuanfu started to churn. The astral energy from their astral palms gushed out explosively as all sorts of terrifying innate techniques blasted out towards Qin Wentian. Only to see Qin Wentian slamming out with his left hand as a terrifying blood-colored mountain peak whistled through the air, smashing towards Yi Wuk and Wu Chong. The falling mountain palms in his hands were getting more and more perfect, especially after he condensed the astral energy from his heavenly hammer into the form of a mountain. It was as though a real mountain peak was blasting out from his palms. Yi Wuk and Wu Chong's attacks frenziedly broke through the mountain peak's defense, while on the other end, Qin Wentian's palms grabbed towards Wang Tung. Get lost! Wang Tung howled in rage. The shadows of his astral souls descended as his palms blasted out attacks akin to the galloping of 10,000 horses. However, Qin Wentian's palms actually shone with a blood-colored sword light, shattering everything in their path. The dragon-seizing palms shook the air as Wang Tung retreated. However, Qin Wentian's palms were akin to the arms of demons. Abruptly, terrifying claws extended out, grabbing onto Wang Tung's head. No! Wang Tung's countenance drastically changed. When he looked at Qin Wentian again, it was as though he was looking at the king of demons, the sovereign of the world. Die! A crisp sound rang out as the dragon-seizing palms crushed Wang Tung's head. The bloody scene was so shocking that it caused the hearts of countless spectators to go into a daze. Was this really an attack that a cultivator at the first level of Yuanfu could unleash? At this moment, how many cultivators at the second level of Yuanfu felt their hearts trembling? If they were in Wang Tung's position, this claw attack would also be able to reap their lives. Too powerful. When they looked at Qin Wentian's silhouette again, It no longer felt like they were looking at a young man. The young man of the past had already possessed the qualifications to look down on all the geniuses in Chu. He had already stepped into the era that belonged to him. Chapter 200. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Qin Wentian separated from each other. Upon seeing Wang Teng's death, an intense feeling of dread arose in their hearts. The three of them had surrounded Qin Wentian, yet Wang Teng had already died. When they stared at Qin Wentian again, their gazes were filled with trepidation, and their countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. In fact, in the direction of the Yi clan, many people stood up as they stared at the sky. Evidently, they were all stunned by this scene. How did Qin Wentian become so powerful? If this was the case, wouldn't Yi Wuk be? Only to see Qin Wentian shifting his gaze onto Yi Wuk and Wu Chong. The two of them exchanged glances, as ruthless expressions could be seen on their faces. Roar! Violent waves of demonic qi gushed forth as Wu Chong's three beast-type astral souls howled. His entire person was akin to a primordial demon descending from the heavens, rushing towards Qin Wentian. Tens of thousands of demonic beasts galloped in the air, as though they were all terrifying demonic beasts, rushing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's arms were clad in demonic armor, as the demonic light in his eyes grew even more demonic. Currently, he had already cultivated the second level of the fiend transformation art, the demon advent boundary. In addition to the power of his bloodline, he was akin to a terrifying demon king. The dragon subduing fist blasted out, as the roars of dragons echoed in the air. Incomparably violent, it collided with the tens of thousands of demonic beasts. At the same instant, the wings on Yi Wuk's back flickered as he arced through the air in a magnificent arc. Both of his palms manifested a multicolored sword as he slashed towards Qin Wentian's throat. Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at Yi Wuk. With a wave of his left hand, sword qi whistled through the air as Qin Wentian pointed out with his finger. Instantly, tens of thousands of sharp swords transformed into beams of killing intent that shot towards Yi Wuk. Yi Wuk's countenance drastically changed as he instantly changed his attack. At the same instant, Qin Wentian's right palm trembled several times, using an incomparably tyrannical strength to forcefully shatter Wu Chong's attack. A few beams of blood-colored light shot into Wu Chong's sea of consciousness, and the spectators only saw Wu Chong's eyes turning lifeless as his body fell from the skies. When Qin Wentian glanced at Yi Wuk again, Yi Wuk's countenance turned somewhat unnatural. With a flap of his wings, he abruptly turned and sped away. From the exchange earlier, he already understood that it was impossible for him to defeat Qin Wentian. At the moment of life and death, who would care about face? Life was the most important thing. The feathers of the Garuda appeared on Qin Wentian's back, as he arced through the air, resembling a true Garuda. With a swipe of his dragon-capturing hands, Yi Wuk was unable to advance any further. The direction in which Yi Wuk was fleeing was in the direction of those from the Yi clan. At this moment, the eyes of those from the Yi clan were filled with an intense desire to survive, as well as fear. No. The countenances of those from the Yi clan were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to accept such an ending. The dragon-capturing hands lifted Yi Wuk up into the air. As Qin Wentian faced the members of the Yi clan, his countenance as calm as ever. So this is the genius that your Yi clan has always been proud of? Even before I stepped onto the path of cultivation, his halo had already descended upon the Sky Harmony City, pressuring the Qin clan, as well as me. Qin Wentian stared at the members of the Yi clan, as well as Bai Qingsong. And now it's only been a year, right? Qin Wentian mumbled to himself, but the impact of his calm words was immense. That's right, in just a short span of a year, Qin Wentian had already defeated Yi Wuk, who had once looked down on him with disdain. Bai Qingsong stared at the pleading eyes of Yi Wuk, as he couldn't believe that this was all real. Release him. At this moment, a voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than the person seated on the azure jadeite dragon seat, Chu Tianjiao. Chu Tianjiao was still as calm as ever, and nobody knew what he was thinking about. Yet when he spoke these 4 words, the weight of his words was extremely heavy. Yi Wuk was once again filled with hope. The eyes of those from the Yi clan also shone with a bright light. That's right, As long as Chu Tianjiao spoke, the person with the most authority in Chu had spoken, there would still be hope. Qin Wentian didn't turn his head back. He continued staring ahead, only to hear the sound of a cracking sound. Instantly, the eyes of those from the Yi clan turned ashen, as they were filled with astonishment and terror. That fiendishly handsome youth slowly released his grip, as Yi Wukei's body fell from the skies. Qin Wentian didn't even say a single word. He directly used his actions to destroy the last strand of hope they had. Chu Tianjiao had a strange expression on his face, as he froze. Although he had expected that Qin Wentian would reject, he didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so decisive, directly killing Yi Wuk after he pleaded for mercy. It was as though he was the one who hastened Yi Wuk's death. Qin Wentian had undoubtedly ruthlessly slapped him in the face in front of the entire Chu country. Release him? A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Mountain, he's merely a student of the Emperor Star Academy. Who has he offended? Have the person who killed him ever thought of releasing him? Have the students of the Emperor Star Academy ever thought of releasing him? When the Yi clan encircled the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City, how many of them died? Has anyone ever thought of releasing them? The words spoken by Qin Wentian were cold. He didn't even cast a glance at Chu Tianjiao. The surroundings of the Chu Emperor district were incomparably silent. No one spoke. It was as though they could feel the blazing anger in Qin Wentian's heart. If not, he wouldn't have killed Yi Wuk and the other two in such a domineering manner. Chu Tianjiao, if you had the chance to kill me, I believe that the word release wouldn't even cross your mind, right? Qin Wentian indifferently asked. Chu Tianjiao didn't reply, but it was exactly as Qin Wentian had said. If he had the chance to kill Qin Wentian, he wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. Me too. Qin Wentian calmly spoke, his words causing the gazes of the crowd to stiffen. Me too. For simple words, but it was enough to announce Qin Wentian's determination. Qin Wentian then turned his gaze onto Bai Qingsong. At this moment, Bai Qingsong was truly afraid. Once upon a time, the Yi clan had descended upon the Sky Harmony City, and revealed to Bai Qingsong the news of the marriage alliance between Autumn Snow and Yi Wuk. At that time, Bai Qingsong was filled with excitement and agitation. He could see the rise of the Bai clan, as well as hope. Without hesitation, he kicked Qin Wentian away, betraying the Qin clan. And now, Yi Wuk had actually died in the hands of the youth he had kicked away. This feeling was like a dream. No one could understand Bai Qingsong's feelings right now. Did he regret it? He didn't know. Even if he regretted it, what could he do? The him now felt as though he had aged a lot. He was jealous of Qin Chuan, who had such an outstanding foster son. As for his two daughters, the genius Autumn Snow had gradually fallen, and the youngest daughter, whom he had looked down upon, had condensed an astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer. But because she despised him for repaying kindness with enmity, she broke off relations with him. And after experiencing all these setbacks, he witnessed the rise of Qin Wentian. Who could understand such a feeling? Qin Wentian. At this moment, Autumn Snow spoke. She smiled as she looked at Qin Wentian, as though a huge boulder had been lifted from her heart. I know that the Bai clan has let you down, and I have let you down as well. Sometimes I regret the choice I made back then. After all, it was you who single-handedly allowed me to become a dazzling genius. Yet what I received in return was betrayal. Not only that, the Bai clan did something unforgivable, and participated in the plot against the Qin clan. I know that I don't have the qualifications to beg for your forgiveness, but I still have to say it. At this moment, Autumn Snow calmly continued. No matter how you want to deal with me, even if you want to kill me, I will accept it wholeheartedly. I was the one who asked for it, but I beg you to spare my father. He's already old, and I'm no longer a dazzling genius. My younger sister, Bai Qing, left because of you. Do you know that Bai Qing is even more powerful than me? Her first astral soul was condensed from the fourth heavenly layer. That day, she cried as she told my father about it, revealing her astral soul. But because of her Wentian Gidge, she severed all ties with my father and ran away from home, never to be heard from again. You should know how much she relies on you, so I don't have the qualifications to beg you. But I beg you, for the sake of Bai Qing, Spare my father. If not in the future, if she knew that her Wentian Gidge had personally killed her father, how would she face you? Upon hearing the sincerity of Autumn Snow's words, the spectators were all moved. So the rumors back then were true. The reason why Autumn Snow could become a dazzling genius was all because of Qin Wentian. And the Bai clan had betrayed Qin Wentian. The youngest daughter of the Bai clan, Bai Qing, had actually condensed an astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer. This was simply too terrifying. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly as the silhouette of a young girl appeared in his mind. He could still remember the time when the young girl handed him a dagger, asking him to use her as a hostage to escape from the Bai clan. Back then, Bai Qing had been so heartbroken. Wentian Gidge. The melodious voice of the young girl resounded in the air. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He had already planned to kill Bai Qingsong today, but after hearing the words of Autumn Snow, his heart wavered. If he killed Bai Qingsong, how would he face Bai Qing in the future? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Autumn Snow. She still had a smile on her face, but within that smile, drops of tears could be seen. In her mind, wasn't she reminiscing about the past? However, all her memories had dissipated with the wind, leaving behind only a body full of scars. Bai Qingsong, cripple your own cultivation and become an ordinary person. Qin Wentian finally spoke. He didn't want Bai Qingsong to die. Bai Qingsong's countenance faltered for a moment, before he lightly nodded his head. Lifting his palms, he abruptly slammed his palms into his own body, shattering the arterial pathways in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, and in an instant he seemed to have aged by tens of years, as a few strands of white hair appeared on his head. Father. Autumn Snow supported Bai Qingsong, as she inclined her head, and looked towards Qin Wentian. However, she only saw Qin Wentian slowly turning around and slowly walking away. In the end, he didn't do anything to her. Sitting on the ground, Autumn Snow started sobbing uncontrollably as she stared at the departing silhouette of her father. Now that she was free, why did she still feel so sad? Staring at the back of Qin Wentian's figure, Autumn Snow felt as though a reincarnation cycle had passed. Qin Wentian didn't do anything to her, but why did her heart ache so much? Qin Wentian had left, and this past event had already faded away like the wind in his heart. Only that innocent and naive lass Bai Qing would remain in his warm memories. Chapter 201. Qin Wentian's name once again resounded throughout the Chu country. After becoming the champion of the Junlin banquet and stepping into Yuanfu, he consecutively killed Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Wang Tung, three dazzling geniuses, continuing to write a legend that belonged to him. Qin Wentian's status in the Chu country also became extremely sensitive. This young genius was revered by countless commoners. Yet he was hated to the bone by the royal clan and the Yi clan. But because of Dai's existence, nobody dared to touch him. Even when the Yi clan saw Yi Wuk die in front of them, they didn't dare to act because Yi Wuk and Qin Wentian had agreed beforehand that this would be a life and death battle. If Qin Wentian died in battle, Dai would definitely not seek revenge. If Yi Wuk died in battle, how would the Yi clan dare to act? Outside the imperial city, in the small town next to the dark forest, the adventurers were busy. They came and went in a hurry, and when they had free time, they would chat. This was the time when they were most relaxed. Once they stepped into the dark forest, even their closest friends might betray them. You guys didn't see it yesterday. That brat Qin Wentian is so fucking powerful. With a single roar he killed Wang Tung. Too powerful. A burly man was currently beaming with joy as he spoke to a girl beside him. He's only 17 years of age. Is he really that powerful? The girl had a look of disbelief on her face. The others beside her also came forward and asked, "Brother Ox, are you exaggerating?" Exaggerating? Brother Ox's eyes widened as he continued. You guys didn't see it with your own eyes, so you don't know how powerful that young man is. I've already said it in a low-profile manner. In any case, with just a breath of his, he could annihilate all of us. After Yi Wuk defeated Qiu Mo, he was ranked number 4 among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. But what happened in the end? He was defeated with a single punch. What kind of bullshit genius is he? Brother Ox, tell us the details of the battle. What does that fellow Qin Wentian look like? Does he have a big head and thick limbs? The beautiful eyes of the girl flickered with curiosity. Yes, his arms were as thick as my arms, and his legs were like the hooves of an ox. Brother Ox grinned. Ahem. The sound of coughing drifted over from the side. Brother Nyo and the others turned their gazes over, and after that, they saw a 17-year-old young man with a bitter smile on his face. In the arms of the young man, there was an extremely adorable snow-white puppy. Qin Wentian was depressed. The rumors among the people were getting more and more unbelievable. However, this guy called Brother Nyo was really good at bragging. His beautiful image was completely destroyed. What? You don't believe me? He's about the same age as you, but you look so weak. I'm afraid you can't even withstand one punch from him. Brother Nyo continued to boast to Qin Wentian. Yes, I believe you. Qin Wentian nodded unceasingly, after which he quickened his steps and entered the dark forest. Scratching his head, he stared at Little Rascal in his arms and asked, Little Rascal, am I really that ugly? Qin Wentian's voice drifted into the ears of Brother Nyo and the others. They stopped in their tracks and were stunned. When they looked forward again, the silhouette of the young man gradually became blurry and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The others beside Brother Nyo all drew in a deep breath as they turned their gazes onto Brother Nyo. That must be a liar. What sort of character is Qin Wentian? How could he be such a handsome young man? Do you guys believe it? Brother Nyo laughed, but he felt that his tone wasn't confident enough. He repeated, Yes, he must be a liar pretending to be Qin Wentian. Right now, Qin Wentian was already at the Yuanfu realm. The chances of him encountering danger in the dark forest were naturally much lower. Although he met with some trouble, he still managed to arrive at the place he was looking for. On the vast grassland, there was a hill. Qin Wentian stood there, surveying his surroundings. The past was still vivid in his mind, but he couldn't see the 9 mountain peaks. Back then, this was precisely the place where he met the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. He dreamt of the spring and autumn dream, and at the same time, obtained the River Mountain catalog. The more Qin Wentian looked at it, the more profound it became. Even now, every time he looked at it, he would gain different insights, deepening his comprehension of the martial Tao. Occasionally, he would speculate about the strength of the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. Most probably, the middle-aged man wouldn't be any weaker than the Azure Emperor. And now, Qin Wentian was returning to this place because he wanted to fulfill a long-cherished wish of his. Back then, when he was on the verge of death, he was brought here by the Black-Winged Condor. Before he left, he promised the Black-Winged Condor that he would give 3 drops of his blood to the Black-Winged Condor when he was proficient in using the power of his bloodline. Today he was here to fulfill his promise. The location they had agreed on was precisely here. From afar, the silhouettes of demonic beasts could be seen, but they didn't approach. Instead, they sped away while emitting low-sounding roars, as though they were summoning their king. Indeed, not too long after, a strong gust of wind could be heard whistling through the skies as a gigantic silhouette sped towards them. In an instant, the silhouette of the Black-Winged Condor had already arrived in the air. The Black-Winged Condor swooped down, landing in front of Qin Wentian. The baleful eyes of the Black-Winged Condor flickered with a hint of astonishment. Although Qin Wentian had an agreement with the Black-Winged Condor in the past, he didn't have too much hope in it. Humans place great importance on benefits. Although demonic beasts were extremely vicious, when it came to craftiness, humans were definitely a notch above demonic beasts. As a demonic beast with high intellect, the Black-Winged Condor had a deep understanding of the personalities of humans. Hence, with regards to Qin Wentian's agreement, the Black-Winged Condor was somewhat taken aback. Senior. Only to see Qin Wentian lightly nodding his head to the Black-Winged Condor. After which, his left hand sliced across the index finger of his right hand. A sword light flashed, and fresh blood gushed forth. The blood in Qin Wentian's body started to seethe, as streams of blood-colored runes frenziedly flowed into the tip of his finger. That drop of blood seemed to contain a terrifying amount of bloodline power. The Black-Winged Condor opened its beak, and with a flick of Qin Wentian's finger, 3 droplets of blood flew into the Black-Winged Condor's mouth. the black-winged condor swallowed the droplets, and within its body, a strange energy started to seethe. Even Qin Wentian, who was standing at the side, could faintly sense it. This caused Qin Wentian to be extremely bewildered. Was his bloodline power really that good? Woo-woo. On the ground, Little Rascal inclined its head and stared at Qin Wentian. That pair of quick-witted eyes of its were extremely moving, and that pitiful look on its face was extremely adorable. You want it as well? A strange expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face. As the sound of his voice faded, he saw Little Rascal nodding its little head incessantly. Momentarily, Qin Wentian rolled his eyes. Could it be that his bloodline power had some sort of unique attraction towards demonic beasts? Open your mouth, Qin Wentian helplessly stated. Little Rascal's eyes brightened, and it cooperated and opened its mouth. Qin Wentian once again circulated the blood-colored runes into the blood on his finger, after which, he squatted down and allowed the blood essence to drip into Little Rascal's mouth. Little Rascal's eyes closed, and under Qin Wentian's gaze, its body gradually grew larger. Within its body, a blood-colored light flashed, and the blood in Little Rascal's body seemed to be seething. Bloodline power? Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. Could it be that his blood essence had activated the demonic bloodline in Little Rascal's body? Golden-colored inscriptions flickered, and under the dumbfounded gaze of Qin Wentian, Little Rascal's body grew even larger. Now, it was the size of an adult demonic wolf. And what was even more shocking was that its snow-white fur actually glowed with a golden light. The golden fur on its forehead grew even more distinct, forming a curved line. Its sharp claws seemed to be clad in a layer of golden armor. That armor was golden in color. Golden in color. What demonic beast is this little fellow? Qin Wentian was speechless. However, this little fellow's intelligence was extremely high. Ever since it started following him, it could already understand human language. The black-winged condor abruptly let out a shrill screech, as though it was piercing through the heavens, causing all the demonic beasts in the surrounding area to go berserk. Their king was howling. Only then did Qin Wentian turn his attention back to the black-winged condor. At this moment, a blood-colored light erupted from the condor's body, causing its body to be enveloped by a halo of light. Its aura caused Qin Wentian to feel a sense of dread. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor was seriously staring at Little Rascal, as though it had seen something astonishing. At this moment, Little Rascal's eyes abruptly opened, as a golden light that caused the hearts of others to palpitate flickered within. Pooh! Little Rascal opened its beak and spat out resplendent golden runes. Upon seeing the golden runes gradually converging into a diagram, the body of the black-winged condor trembled involuntarily, as though it had seen something inconceivable. Little Rascal's gaze was fixated on Qin Wentian's finger, as an expression of hope appeared on its face. You want me to drip a drop of my blood onto the divine inscription? Qin Wentian asked Little Rascal. Little Rascal nodded unceasingly. Qin Wentian smiled, as he dripped another drop of blood onto the divine inscription diagram. Instantly, the blood flowed unceasingly, swiftly merging with the divine inscription diagram. The divine inscription diagram transformed into a beam of light, directly entering Little Rascal's head. Yeah. A voice abruptly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind, causing him to be stunned. After which he saw Little Rascal transforming back into a snow-white puppy. His eyes flickered involuntarily as he asked, Little Rascal, is that your voice? Yeah. The voice rang out again, but this time, Qin Wentian was extremely depressed. Looking at the adorable appearance of Little Rascal, he carried it in his arms and patted its head. Seems like you're still a wimpy kid. You can only understand words but can't speak. What? Yeah. I don't understand at all. Although he said this, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with shock. Earlier, that divine inscription diagram actually allowed Little Rascal to directly transmit its voice into his mind. This was definitely a miraculous thing. The black-winged condor saw Qin Wentian patting Little Rascal's head, as though he was treating a pet. Its head shrunk backwards, as though it was thinking about something. After which, the black-winged condor turned and lay there, turning its head back to look at Qin Wentian. A strange light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. After which, he stepped onto the back of the black-winged condor, and in an instant, a raging wind kicked up as the black-winged condor soared into the air, continuing its journey into the depths of the dark forest. Below, a myriad of demonic beasts galloped forth, trampling the earth, emitting terrifying rumbling sounds. All of them were following the black-winged condor. As they continued deeper into the dark forest, Qin Wentian discovered, to his shock, that there were a few demonic beasts with tyrannical auras. Similar to the black-winged condor, these demonic beasts were also flying towards a certain direction. Within the dark forest, the number of demonic beasts was like a flood. However, this wasn't the direction of the royal capital of Chu. It was the exact opposite direction, the central region of the dark forest. Chapter 202. Only when Qin Wentian truly entered the depths of the dark forest did he realize that this place was far more mysterious and terrifying than what he had imagined. The dark forest that enveloped the royal capital of Chu was even older than the history of Chu. Nobody knew how long it had existed for, and nobody in Chu had truly unearthed all of its secrets. Maybe there were people who had entered the depths of the dark forest before, but even those characters wouldn't stay in Chu. Hence, in Chu, very few people had ever mentioned what was in the depths of the dark forest. Qin Wentian stood on the back of the black-winged condor, watching as the myriad of demonic beasts galloped through the air, passing through a mysterious space, passing through an ancient mountain range, passing through a forest within a forest. And at this moment, the scene in front of Qin Wentian was even more shocking. Numerous sharp mountain peaks were connected to each other, forming a barrier between the heavens and the earth, blocking out the entire sky. The myriad of demonic beasts passed through the barrier, and the sunlight grew dimmer. In front of them was no longer the dark forest, but rather, a vast expanse of plains. Finally, the speed of the black-winged condor slowed down. Its body descended by several degrees, and was now flying at a low altitude. The speed of the other demonic beasts also slowed down, and they slowly advanced forward. There were even several demonic beasts that were crawling on the ground, advancing forward. The posture of these demonic beasts caused Qin Wentian to feel a deep sense of awe. These demonic beasts gave him the illusion that they were on a pilgrimage. The myriad of demonic beasts descended upon this area at the same time. Their posture was so pious, as though they were paying their respects to the saint of all demonic beasts, the lord of all demonic beasts. At this moment, a sharp glint of light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. In front of him, two incomparably gigantic statues appeared. One of the statues was that of a terrifying giant that was over 100 meters tall, while the other statue was that of a fearsome demonic beast, squatting beside the giant. Are the demonic beasts in the dark forest really here on a pilgrimage? Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Finally, the two statues drew nearer and nearer. Even the black-winged condor landed on the ground, revealing a pious posture as it prostrated itself before the two statues, as though it was paying respects to its king. Demonic beasts were intelligent and had their own intelligence. Although they were more vicious than humans, they were more loyal to their king. This could be seen from the arrival of thousands of demonic beasts. Abruptly, Qin Wentian felt his entire body turning cold, after which, he saw several powerful demonic beasts glaring at him, and Little Rascal in his embrace with a cold gaze. Qin Wentian was taken aback. It seemed that these demonic beasts were dissatisfied with the fact that he and the little fellow did not kneel down devoutly. Wisps of terrifying demonic aura enveloped the black-winged condor as they let out low roars, as if they were communicating with the black-winged condor. Little Rascal seemed to have sensed the evil intentions of these demonic beasts. It leapt down from Qin Wentian's embrace, and abruptly transformed into a baleful demonic beast. The golden glow on its forehead flickered, and the resplendent golden claws seemed to be clad in demonic armor, exuding a sense of nobility. Roar! A low roar rang out as Little Rascal roared at these demonic beasts, after which, its body transformed into a blur as it dashed forward. Little Rascal's speed was exceedingly fast, and in an instant, it appeared on the head of the demonic beast statue. Momentarily, the demonic beasts all started howling madly, wanting nothing more than to swallow Little Rascal whole. However, they didn't dare to advance any further. Roar! Little Rascal howled to the heavens. Its solemn voice resonated for a long time. It held its head high, filled with arrogance. Finally, a few powerful demonic beasts could no longer endure Little Rascal's provocation. Flapping their wings, they dashed forward. However, just as they were about to reach the statue, they found that they couldn't advance any further. Rumbling sounds rang out as their bodies were all jolted back. However, they didn't give up and continued to rush forward. This repeated over and over again, causing them to cough out blood unceasingly. Such a situation caused Qin Wentian to be extremely shocked. These demonic beasts were truly stubborn. However, what was even more shocking was that these demonic beasts were clearly obstructed by some sort of energy. Why was Little Rascal able to arrive on the head of the statue unscathed? At this moment, Little Rascal raised its head high and continued to howl in a low voice, causing Qin Wentian to feel that it was extremely funny. To think that such a docile little fellow would actually have such an arrogant side. Yeah. Little Rascal's voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. An expression of bewilderment involuntarily appeared on his face, only to see Little Rascal turning its gaze towards him. Its sharp claws pointed at the gigantic statue that was over 100 meters tall, as though it was hinting for him to go over. As Qin Wentian advanced, a group of demonic beasts instantly surrounded him. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor appeared beside Qin Wentian, letting out a low roar. Only then did the demonic beasts give way, but their gazes towards Qin Wentian were still filled with unfriendliness. As he neared the statue, all of a sudden, Qin Wentian felt a surge of pressure. Rumble! A surge of energy abruptly gushed into Qin Wentian's body, forcing him to retreat as he groaned in agony. When he inclined his head and stared at the statue, his heart trembled violently. Earlier, he could faintly sense that the statue seemed to have a life of its own, as a terrifying wave of will energy gushed into his body. Could this statue be a dead expert? An absurd thought suddenly appeared in Qin Wentian's mind. This time around, the blood in his body seethed as an intense demonic qi gushed forth from him. Astral light enveloped his body as he advanced step by step towards the statue. This time around, the will of the statue was even more obvious. It was like an overwhelming pressure, causing his heart to pound violently as his blood vessels were suppressed. This will of the statue was too terrifying. Qin Wentian advanced with great difficulty. A thunderous boom rang out as the terrifying will of the statue slammed into Qin Wentian, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air once again. His blood splattered through the air, and abruptly, a mysterious force enveloped Qin Wentian's blood. After which, the fresh blood transformed into a strand of silk that flowed into the statue. The earth abruptly trembled as a fearsome heavenly might gushed forth from the statue. It was like an ancient heavenly deity, causing the demonic beasts present to have a hard time breathing. Busy. Traces of dust drifted away from the statue. The eyes of the statue gleamed with a terrifying light, causing the earth to tremble and the surrounding mountain peaks to tremble unceasingly. In the air, boundless astral light shone through the cracks in the mountain range, cascading onto the statue before extending outwards, enveloping this entire space. In an instant, a heavenly screen appeared in this space. This heavenly screen was formed from astral light, encompassing everything. Constellation. Qin Wentian felt a sense of familiarity when he saw this scene. Oh right, that day outside the divine sect of Qin Wentian, the middle-aged man who might be his old fogey father. Wasn't he facing a group of terrifying characters who could unleash their constellations? At the instant this strange scene appeared, Qin Wentian and the demonic beasts felt as though they were carrying a terrifying mountain on their backs. However, at the same time, he felt a mysterious energy enveloping him, helping him to resist the pressure. He slowly walked forward, arriving at the side of the ancient statue as he immersed himself in this intent. Roar! Little Rascal roared once more. Excitement could be seen in its eyes. The demonic beasts were all deeply shaken when they saw this scene. Right now, they were all wondering what sort of existences Little Rascal and that human were exactly. In a place far away from Chu, in the Ginkgo continent of Grand Xia, on the stargazing platform of the Venerate Heavens sect, A white-haired old man had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the heavens. His resplendent eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and present. With a wave of his hand, a map appeared in front of the white-haired old man. This incomparably gigantic map was spread out in the air, covering boundless territories. One could say that this map was one of the most complete maps of the Grand Xia Empire. And on it, the vast and boundless territories of Grand Xia were marked out. The old man's palm slashed through the air, and an instant later, a bright light appeared in a certain area of Grand Xia. On it, 2 words could be seen: Chu. The old man furrowed his brows. Chu was actually such a small country. It shouldn't be possible for such an existence to appear here. In that case, there could only be one possibility: ancient ruins. The demonic constellation has descended on Chu. Quickly go and investigate. The voice of the old man abruptly rang out in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing the hearts of countless experts to tremble. Their gazes all turned in the direction of the stargazing platform. Chu. This was the first time this name appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing huge waves of commotion. Not only that, not too long after, the voice that appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect was also transmitted out, resounding throughout Gingku and even spreading to the other territories of Grand Xia. However, the people of Chu had no idea of this. As the current ruler of Chu, the third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was currently feeling extremely uneasy. This was the first time he felt such great waves in his heart. In front of him, there was a figure with his head lowered. This was the news he brought, causing Chu Tianjiao to feel extremely uneasy. Are you certain? Chu Tianjiao asked for the third time, staring at the figure in front of him. Your subordinate is certain. Xiaolan died outside the royal capital. Amidst the heavy atmosphere, that figure replied in a low voice, feeling an intense sense of unease. Has the corpse been properly disposed of? Chu Tianjiao asked again. For now. That figure replied. Deal with it cleanly. You should know what to do. Chu Tianjiao coldly spoke, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. That figure nodded, bowed and retreated. He naturally understood what to do. For those who knew of this matter, other than himself, no one else could be spared. But of course at this moment, he was still thinking if he should make plans for himself. After that figure left, Chu Tianjiao drew in a deep breath. Xiaolan's death in Chu was naturally not his doing. Xiaolan was someone from the Xiao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace. Regardless of who killed him, as long as he died because of matters of Chu, the royal clan of Chu wouldn't be able to escape responsibility. Naturally, this wasn't done by Dai. Since Dai had already spared Xiaolan, there was no need for him to assassinate him. Doing so would only infuriate the 9 Mystical Palace. In that case, who was the culprit? What made Chu Tianjiao even more shocked was that news of this matter quickly spread throughout Chu. This caused Chu Tianjiao to feel a chill in his heart, and he immediately thought of a solution. He immediately ordered his men to inform the 9 Mystical Palace of this matter. Chapter 203. After the news of Xiaolan's death spread out, Dai, who was preparing to leave Chu, stayed behind. At the same time, he ordered those from the Emperor Star Academy to leave the royal capital. As long as they left, the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't be able to hunt them down one by one. Today in the royal capital of Chu, Chu Tianjiao and a group of people stood there respectfully, as though they were welcoming someone. From afar, the howls of demonic beasts could be heard. Several gigantic demonic beasts could be seen flapping their wings as they soared through the air. When they arrived, they stopped and slowly descended from the skies. A raging wind gusted, buffeting the bodies of Chu Tianjiao and the rest. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't feel the slightest bit of dissatisfaction as he respectfully stared at the newcomers. A few silhouettes descended from the demonic beasts, coldly staring at Chu Tianjiao and the rest. Finally, the gaze of one of them landed on Xiao Lu. Are you the crown prince of Snowcloud from the Xiao clan? That person asked in a low voice, his tone cold. Xiao Lu bowed. Junior Xiao Lu pays his respects to the elders of my clan. You really know how to use connections. That person indifferently stated. Explain everything clearly. I want the truth. If you lie, You will have to bear the consequences. Xiao Lu respectfully bowed as he recounted the events that transpired. He mentioned that Xiao Lan had aided the royal clan in resisting against the Emperor Star Academy, and that the members of the 9 Mystical Palace were slaughtered by Dai. Dai spared Xiao Lan, but in the end, Xiao Lan died outside the royal capital. After hearing Xiao Lu's words, that person shifted his gaze onto Chu Tianjiao as he asked, "There should be a heavenly dipper sovereign in Chu. Why didn't you fight? Why did you allow the members of my 9 Mystical Palace to be slaughtered?" As the sound of his voice faded, a surging pressure enveloped Chu Tianjiao, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. Junior didn't know that there was a heavenly dipper sovereign in the Emperor Star Academy. By the time something happened, it was already too late. Junior is responsible for Xiao Lan's death, and I'm willing to accept my punishment. Chu Tianjiao humbly spoke, appearing extremely polite. However, his words implied that Xiao Lan's death had nothing to do with him. In the past you didn't know, but now you should know. I order the heavenly dipper sovereigns of Chu to kill Dai. That person spoke in a domineering manner, causing Chu Tianjiao's heart to turn cold. Yet he didn't dare to disobey. He respectfully replied, "Junior will inform the ancestor immediately." That person didn't say anything, indicating that he had tacitly agreed. After Chu Tianjiao left, the others were still trembling in fear, not daring to say anything. Not long after, within the royal palace of Chu, a terrifying aura permeated the atmosphere, shaking the entire royal palace. After which, the silhouette of an old man walked out from the royal palace, as a towering blood might gushed towards the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. Everywhere it passed by, the crowd felt as though their bodies were about to be corroded, causing them to feel extremely unbearable. Mandate of blood. It seems like the second level of the mandate of corrosion is the mandate of blood. Those from the 9 Mystical Palace murmured in a low voice, as they sensed the towering mandate of blood. The royal capital trembled once again, as a towering blood might bore down on the earth. Not too long after, in the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, a similarly terrifying pressure gushed forth. In that instant, everyone in the vicinity of the Emperor Star Academy felt as though their bodies were being restrained. It was extremely unbearable, as though someone was grabbing onto their throats, excruciating pain. The two terrifying forces clashed in the air above the royal capital, causing countless people to flee the area. This time around, it was different from when Dai killed the expert from the 9 Mystical Palace. The intent of this clash was so intense that it felt as though it could kill anyone. In the air above the royal capital, Chu Tianjiao gazed at the battlefield as he sighed in his heart. The ancestor of Chu was the protector of the 9 Mystical Palace. Unless the Chu country was on the verge of destruction, he would never exit his seclusion. However, because of Xiao Lan's death, he was forced to fight against Dai, who was also at the Heavenly Dipper realm. This made Chu Tianjiao silently swear that if he succeeded in the future, he would definitely control the 9 Mystical Palace. The mandate of blood against the mandate of force. Both are at the second level, but Dai seems to have the upper hand. An expert from the 9 Mystical Palace stated in a low voice, "Dai should be one of those fellows from the Azure Emperor Palace." As the sound of his voice faded, the experts from the 9 Mystical Palace stepped out, flying towards the direction of the clash. The clash between Dai and the ancestor of Chu grew more and more terrifying. Dai's astral souls were stronger, but he only had 2 astral souls while his opponent had 3. Both Dai and the ancestor of Chu had 4 astral souls, but the reason why they couldn't condense 4 was because the amount of astral energy required to condense an astral soul was extremely terrifying. Hence, even the ancestor of Chu, who had an entire country's worth of resources to support his cultivation, had yet to condense his 4th astral soul. The Chu country, to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, was ultimately too small. Their resources were limited, and once they reached a certain level, their cultivation would be restricted by the lack of resources. Dai's long robes fluttered in the wind. Upon seeing the experts from the 9 Mystical Palace descending, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. "Although I die, I have no regrets. But before I die, I have to eliminate the threat of Chu." Dai's countenance was as calm as ever, but in his heart, he was already prepared to die. With the death of the ancestor of Chu, as long as the experts from the Nine Mystical Palace didn't interfere and deal with Qin Wentian, there was no need for him to worry about Qin Wentian's safety. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian stepped out as a towering blood might gush towards him. Qin Wentian clenched his fists, and a moment later, it was as though a myriad of palms had appeared, grabbing onto Qin Wentian. The countenance of the ancestor of Chu stiffened. Dai, was he courting death? Dai. The withered body took a step forward, and a horrifying blood-red light stuck to Dai's body, corroding his body in an instant. However, Dai's body was getting closer and closer. Boom. The heavens and earth trembled. The old ancestor of Chu only felt his body sinking, as a boundless pressure bore down on him. At the same time, a pair of invisible palms held him firmly in place. Dai's speed increased as he transformed into a resplendent beam of light that shot towards the old ancestor. A brilliant light flashed. The will to die was born. The cold wind howled. There would be no regrets. Boom! A towering amount of energy slammed into the body of the ancestor of Chu. Dai's entire body trembled as he looked down on the ancestor of Chu. However, with a single swipe of his palm, a gigantic palm imprint appeared in the air, locking the body of the ancestor of Chu within. Have you gone mad? The ancestor of Chu howled in rage. However, Dai's countenance was still as ruthless as ever. With an abrupt clench of his fist, the body of his opponent transformed into a beam of blood-colored light, piercing into Dai's body. Dai's entire body was dyed red with blood, and at this moment, half of his silhouette had already been corroded. Swishing sounds rang out as a silvery light flashed past. Numerous chains pierced through Dai's shoulders, tightly binding his body. Dai had no strength to resist. His blood dyed the ground red. His shoulders were tightly bound by the chains, as he was dragged through the air. Xiaolan's death has nothing to do with me. Dai maintained his composure. Even though he knew that the Nine Mystical Palace wouldn't spare him, he still had to make his stance clear. He hoped that the Nine Mystical Palace wouldn't vent their anger on the students of the Emperor Star Academy. Those from the Nine Mystical Palace didn't reply. Dai was dragged along by the chains as they soared through the air, causing the people of Chu to be stunned. Was this the power of the Nine Mystical Palace? In front of them, Chu was simply too weak. Chu Tianjiao felt an unbearable feeling in his heart. Although he had captured Dai, the ancestor of Chu had become a sacrificial offering. The Nine Mystical Palace was too ruthless. If they had acted earlier, they would have been able to save the ancestor of Chu. Yet they didn't. This was the price that Chu had to pay for Xiaolan's death. Capture the remnants of the Emperor Star Academy. Don't leave any survivors. Also, find out who the culprit is. In the air, the experts from the Nine Mystical Palace stood on the backs of demonic beasts as they departed. Dai's body was still bound by the chains, a tragic sight to behold. Very quickly, the experts from the Nine Mystical Palace disappeared, as though they had never appeared before. However, Chu Tianjiao knew that even if he were to enter the Nine Mystical Palace in the future, he wouldn't be able to live a good life. Pass down my command, capture and kill those from the Emperor Star Academy. Chu Tianjiao coldly commanded. Instantly, his voice echoed throughout the entire royal palace. It seemed as though a new wave of carnage was about to erupt in the Chu country. Outside the dark forest, a white crane soared through the air. On its back, a graceful silhouette flew into the depths of the dark forest. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. She knew that Qin Wentian had entered the dark forest. Now that Dai was dead and the Emperor Star Academy was disbanded, if Qin Wentian were to be discovered by the royal clan, he would undoubtedly die. She had to inform Qin Wentian not to return. However, given how vast the dark forest was, it was exceedingly difficult to find a single person. Mo Qingqing searched the dark forest for half a month, yet she still couldn't find any traces of Qin Wentian. At this moment, there was a lot of dust on Mo Qingqing's green robes, and her countenance was extremely haggard. It was extremely tiring to live one's life in the midst of worry, and right now, she was truly afraid that Qin Wentian would return to the royal capital. Demonic beasts. At this moment, Mo Qingqing's countenance stiffened. In front of her, a few tyrannical demonic beasts were staring at her. Their gazes were ice cold. exuding a terrifying baleful aura. "Let's go." The white crane soared through the air, rapidly departing. However, the demonic beasts howled in rage as they chased after the white crane, causing the entire dark forest to tremble. With regards to all of this, Qin Wentian had no idea. He was still in the central region of the dark forest, sitting cross-legged in front of the two statues. A resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space. From the statue, Qin Wentian could clearly sense an extremely tyrannical mandate. It was similar to the time when he fought against Xiaolan, when Xiaolan directly attacked his Sea of Consciousness. That was a type of mandate. Naturally, Xiaolan's strength clearly couldn't be compared to a constellation. The statue in front of him caused him to gradually gain a trace of comprehension, as he came into contact with another layer of power on the martial path. Why were astral novas so powerful? What was the origin of astral constellations? Were the abilities bestowed upon Wuxia by his astral souls truly merely the amplification of his strength and the innate attributes of his astral souls? Qin Wentian released his astral souls as he silently comprehended. Behind him, the demonic beasts were still there. Little Rascal bared his fangs and brandished his claws at them in an extremely arrogant manner. If Mo Qingqing saw this scene, she would definitely find it extremely interesting. That docile little fellow actually seemed to be taming these ferocious demonic beasts. Chapter 204. Cultivation had no sense of time, especially when one was in a unique state of comprehension. At this moment, Qin Wentian was in an ethereal state, as though he was in a dream. He couldn't sense anything happening in the external world. Within the wondrous state, there seemed to be a powerful constellation enveloping the heavens and earth. The Wanxiang state was resplendent, and there seemed to be a mysterious energy emanating from it. This feeling grew clearer and clearer as time flowed by. Will mandate. Qin Wentian murmured in a low voice. The resplendent heavenly hammer astral soul radiated forth, causing a mysterious force field to appear in the space around Qin Wentian. For stellar martial cultivators after Yuanfu, their astral souls would correspond to their Yuanfu. Astral souls are the energy of stellar martial cultivators, and the will of their astral souls is the will of stellar martial cultivators. An astral soul heavenly hammer appeared in Qin Wentian's hands as he gripped it tightly. His palms felt as though they were filled with even more strength than before, as a mysterious intent permeated the surroundings. This energy was incomparably profound, yet it gave Qin Wentian a sense of reality. It was as though his strength could grow stronger. This was no longer a simple augmentation of his astral soul. It was a type of mandate. He believed that as he continued to cultivate, this energy would only grow stronger and stronger. In fact, even his constellation would be born from this. Abruptly, Qin Wentian opened his eyes as a sharp glint of light flickered within. Staring at the statue in front of him, it was as though he could sense the strength of the will contained within it. Qin Wentian didn't know that at this moment, he had truly stepped into the mandate of force. The mandate he comprehended earlier was the first level of the mandate of force, strength. There were many types of mandates in the world, and each type of mandate could give rise to different types of abilities. However, the first level of the mandate of force would never change. The first level of the mandate of force was strength. As for the cultivation realms after that, he would have to depend on himself to comprehend it. Once he stepped into the second level, he would have the qualifications to condense an astral nova. At the third level, he would be able to condense his celestial phenomenon. As for the cultivation realms after Yuanfu, it was a bottleneck. Countless cultivators were stuck at this bottleneck. Other than the vast amount of cultivation resources required, one would also need a high level of comprehension to advance further. Even a genius from the Nine Mystical Palace like Xiaolan only managed to comprehend the first level of the Mandate of Lightning, when he was at the third level of Yuanfu. As for Qin Wentian, his comprehension ability was exceedingly high, and under a stroke of good fortune, he managed to comprehend the Mandate of Lightning when he was at the first level of Yuanfu. As for my Great Dreams Astral Soul and Demon Sovereign Astral Soul, if I were to properly comprehend them, I might be able to gain some insights as well. Qin Wentian murmured in his heart. After which, he closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. Qin Wentian didn't know that at this moment, the royal capital of Chu was in a state of unrest. At the same time, within the dark forest, there were many terrifying characters. At this moment, Mo Qingqing was in a sorry state. She had no way of knowing which direction to go, and was being hunted by demonic beasts in all directions. Even her white crane had died in the hands of demonic beasts. She could still remember the scene of the white crane's head being smashed apart by the claws of a powerful flying beast. Mo Qingqing's eyes were red, and her beautiful robes were riddled with scars. Her beautiful countenance was extremely haggard, as though she hadn't been able to properly rest for the past few days. Wentian, where are you exactly? Mo Qingqing had no idea of the current situation in the royal capital. She only hoped that Qin Wentian wouldn't go out. I will definitely find you. An unwavering determination flickered in the eyes of the young girl, as she prepared to move again. But at this moment, a whistling sound rang out in the air. Raising her head, Mo Qingqing saw a group of silhouettes walking over. These people stood in the air, giving her a feeling that they were extremely powerful. One of them glanced at Mo Qingqing, but very quickly, he shifted his gaze away. The demonic qi in the mountain range ahead is extremely dense. Let's go take a look. A figure calmly spoke, as his silhouette moved like the wind, advancing forward. Mo Qingqing's eyes flickered as she followed after the silhouettes of those people. The experts in the air all entered the mountain range, as they whistled through the air. What a dense demonic qi. Seems like we've come to the right place. But isn't the news from the Venerate Heavens sect a little too exaggerated? Could it be that that old man is really able to pry into the secrets of the heavens from the constellations? Don't underestimate the Venerate Heavens sect. After so many years, the ranking list created by the Venerate Heavens sect is the most authoritative one in Grand Xia. That old man truly has his own outstanding points. Finally, they saw the demonic beasts in the distance. Their eyes narrowed as one of them coldly laughed. So many little demons. There's even a human little fellow. In the eyes of these people, the demonic beasts in the dark forest were actually all little demons. Qin Wentian was startled awake. He turned his head and stared at the group of experts that just arrived. His gaze froze, only to see the demonic beasts howling in rage at them, as though they wanted to obstruct their advance. What a bunch of ignorant little demons. One of them laughed. After that, he waved his hand and in an instant, a terrifying blood-colored beam of light shot downwards, enveloping the demonic beasts below. In an instant, the group of demonic beasts howled as their bodies exploded, causing blood to spurt out in all directions. Will. Qin Wentian's countenance sank. This was the same type of energy he comprehended earlier, but it was much stronger compared to his own. Senior. Qin Wentian called out. Momentarily, that person halted his attack, and turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian. These demonic beasts are the demonic beasts of this dark forest. They came here to pay their respects to these two statues. Junior came here by chance and discovered that these two statues were extraordinary. I hope that Senior can spare them on account that these demonic beasts didn't destroy the ancient ruins. Junior will bring them away now. Qin Wentian spoke. Little fellow, you actually have a heart that bemoans the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. But you are right, on account that they didn't destroy the ancient ruins. If you can bring them away, I will spare them. That person laughed. Qin Wentian glanced at Little Rascal who had leapt into his embrace. After which, Little Rascal let out a few low roars, and the black-winged condor also let out a frenzied roar. Only then did the demonic beasts gradually calm down as they retreated from this place. However, the eyes of these demonic beasts were filled with rage, and their gazes were filled with killing intent. Qin Wentian followed the black-winged condor as they departed. The experts in the air didn't obstruct them. To them, these demonic beasts and Qin Wentian weren't even worth a mention. Seems like this little fellow has the ability to tame demonic beasts. An expert in the air laughed. After which, he turned his gaze onto the two statues as his countenance turned heavy. The demonic beasts departed, trampling the earth. Qin Wentian walked out, only to see that there were even more experts in the air. He couldn't help but to sigh in his heart. To think that this ancient ruins would attract so many terrifying characters. Let's go. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. The silhouette of the black-winged condor soared up into the air, departing into the distance. The roars of demonic beasts drifted over. And as Qin Wentian's gaze drifted over, his eyes narrowed. Qingcheng. Qin Wentian directly leapt down, and roared in rage at the demonic beasts surrounding Mo Qingcheng. Scram. Little rascal transforming into a terrifying golden-colored primordial demon. With a howl of rage, it shocked the surrounding demonic beasts. Roar. A golden bolt of lightning arced through the air, and a demonic beast that was attacking Mo Qingcheng had its neck bitten off, falling to the side. Little rascal supported its body, and its cold golden eyes swept over the demonic beasts, exuding an incomparably cold aura. Qingcheng. Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Mo Qingcheng. Right now, Mo Qingcheng was covered in blood, and her aura was unstable. Her countenance was extremely haggard, and the instant she saw Qin Wentian, her eyes reddened. Coughing a few times, a smile appeared on her face as she walked to the side of Qin Wentian. Opening her arms, she hugged Qin Wentian tightly. You bastard, I've been searching for you for a long time. Mo Qingcheng's delicate body trembled lightly in Qin Wentian's embrace. Qin Wentian only felt a wave of guilt, and he lightly patted her back, stroking her hair as he spoke in a low voice. Everything's fine now, everything's fine now. I'm so afraid that you would return to the royal capital. Mo Qingcheng spoke in a low voice. What happened? Qin Wentian felt somewhat bewildered. Xiaolon died, and several experts from the 9 mystical palace invaded Chu, causing the royal ancestor to fight against Senior Dai. The royal ancestor died in battle, and Senior Dai was heavily injured, and was brought away by the 9 mystical palace. And now, the royal clan is going all out to hunt down the students of the Emperor Star Academy, killing them all without mercy. Especially you. Mo Qingcheng's words caused Qin Wentian to feel a chill in his heart, as his aura fluctuated violently. The two of them separated, and Mo Qingcheng stared at Qin Wentian. Wentian, don't return to Chu, okay? I'll go with you, we'll roam the world together. Qin Wentian stared at the haggard countenance of Mo Qingcheng. Yet her beautiful eyes were still as clear as ever. Risking her life to enter the dark forest. Was it just to tell him that the royal capital was in danger? Silly lass. Qin Wentian kissed Mo Qingcheng's forehead, as he hugged her tightly once more. Qingcheng, I, Qin Wentian, will never betray you in this life. Mo Qingcheng's body trembled, as her eyes reddened. However, she still had a radiant smile on her face, as beautiful as ever. Everything was worth it. It was as though she already knew what Qin Wentian would do. He who valued relationships and loyalty, would still want to return to the royal capital. In that case, she was willing to accompany him. Regardless of whether he ascended to the heavens or stepped on the Yellow Springs path, her heart would never waver. Qin Wentian inclined his head, as he stared into the distance. Over there, was the direction of the royal capital of Chu. This trip to the royal capital, he, Qin Wentian, swore that he would definitely make the royal clan of Chu history. Chapter 205. In the royal capital of Chu, within the royal palace, within an elegant villa, there was a group of armored soldiers standing guard outside, exuding an austere killing intent. In the room, a row of young men and women were kneeling in front of the bed. In front of them, the Emperor of Chu was on the verge of death, as though he would pass away at any moment. Wu Wei. The sovereign king looked at a young man, his voice weak. Father. Chu Wu Wei stared at his dying father as he sighed in his heart. No matter if you were an emperor or a commoner, when you were on the verge of death, you would always be in such a state. No wonder there were so many people in the Grand Xia continent, who were all pursuing the path of cultivation. Not only did the path of cultivation grant them immense strength, it also granted them a longer lifespan. After I die, help your younger brother to protect the bloodline of the royal clan of Chu. The lifeless eyes of the Emperor King flickered with a hint of hope as he stared at his eldest son. Why didn't Big Brother inherit the throne? Upon hearing the words of the Emperor King, The eyes of the person on the right of Chu Wuwei widened as he spoke with an unconvinced tone. Even if his father was about to die, he still wanted to speak up for his elder brother. In his eyes, his eldest brother, Chu Wuwei, was the most perfect of them all. He was also the most suitable candidate to inherit the throne of Chu. As for his third brother, he didn't like him at all. The emperor stared at the second prince, Chu Mang, as he sighed in his heart. These three sons of his were all exceedingly outstanding. The first prince, Chu Wuwei, was indifferent to fame and fortune because he couldn't cultivate. He didn't yearn for power struggles, but even so he had a terrifying intellect and methods. Not only that, his character was extremely well-liked. Other than the fact that he couldn't cultivate, he could be said to be perfect, even surpassing Chu Tianjiao. The Emperor King was even thinking that if he wanted to seize the throne, how confident would Chu Tianjiao be? The second prince, Chu Mang, was impulsive and clumsy. His IQ was the lowest, but his martial prowess was the highest. He was the most outstanding out of the three brothers, and in the entire Chu country, there weren't many who were as dazzling as him. If Chu Wuwei was the one with the highest level of talent in the martial Dao, that would be the true definition of perfection. Sadly, nobody was perfect. The third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate for him, and was deeply loved by him. The only flaw he had was that he was too arrogant. Shut up. Chu Wuwei berated Chu Mang. Momentarily, Chu Mang turned his head away, refusing to look at the emperor, causing the emperor to sigh endlessly. They were all his sons, how could he not love them? Father, as long as I exist, the bloodline of the royal family will exist. Chu Wuwei calmly stated. The emperor stared at him, as though waiting for him to say something else. Sadly, Chu Wuwei didn't say that he would help his younger brother, Chu Tianjiao. He only promised that as long as he was alive, the bloodline of the royal clan would survive. Chu Tianjiao naturally understood as well. The sovereign king turned his gaze away and slowly closed his eyes. His breathing gradually weakened. Very swiftly, the sound of the emperor's death resounded throughout the entire Chu country. Outside the royal palace, countless nobles of Chu entered. They had been waiting outside the royal palace for a long time. The emperor who once shook the heavens and earth had finally closed his eyes forever. The Chu country would soon become the world of the younger generation. Naturally, there would be someone to take care of the emperor's funeral. At the highest peak of the royal palace, Chu Wuwei and Chu Tianjiao stood together, gazing down at the majestic royal palace. Behind them, there was another person. This person was none other than Chu Tianjiao's personal guard, a peak-level Yuanfu expert. Although Chu Tianjiao's name wasn't that famous in Chu, Chu Tianjiao knew very well how powerful Chu Tianjiao was. In the entire royal clan, there were only a few people who could be compared to him. Elder brother, I'm about to succeed the throne. After a long period of silence, Chu Tianjiao finally spoke. Chu Wuwei lightly nodded his head, only to hear Chu Tianjiao continuing. Father always wants me to consult you. Elder brother, what do you think I should do after I succeed the throne? Today, the Chu country is already in a precarious situation. There's a possibility that we might be consigned to eternal damnation at any moment. Chu Wuwei calmly stated. Don't fight with the Qin clan anymore. Vindicate Qin Wu, grant Qin Wu the position of the martial king, and allocate a few cities to the Qin clan. At the same time, don't hunt down the students of the Emperor Star Academy. It's enough for the 9 mystical palace to see, but don't push things too far. Elder brother, aren't you underestimating the power of the royal clan? The Qin clan started a rebellion, and the royal clan admitted their mistakes. What does this mean? Isn't this the same as slapping our own faces? The Emperor Star Academy is already like fire and water with our Chu country. How can we coexist? The best way is to exterminate them all. As for those who manage to escape, they might grow stronger, but don't tell me that our royal academy and our royal clan won't grow stronger? Chu Tianjiao gazed at the distant lands, his calm voice not concealing his wild ambitions. Is that so? Let's not talk about the others. If Qin Wentian from the Emperor Star Academy breaks through to the Heavenly Dipper realm before you, with the current strength of the royal clan, how can you protect yourselves? Chu Wuwei calmly asked. That's why he has to die. Chu Tianjiao's voice contained a strong determination. If he has already left, why do you want him to die? Chu Wuwei asked. When Qiu Emo was captured, he had already pledged his allegiance to us. He said that he would be able to find Mustang. With Mustang here, with Qin Wentian's personality, how could he not come? Chu Tianjiao slowly shifted his gaze onto Chu Wuwei. Chu Wuwei similarly stared at Chu Tianjiao. Shaking his head, he turned and departed, leaving behind a message. If you cause the Chu clan to fall into danger, I will replace you. Audacious. The person behind Chu Tianjiao roared in rage, as a tyrannical aura gushed forth, enveloping Chu Wuwei. Impudent. Chu Tianjiao turned his head and berated his protector. That's my elder brother. Yes. That protector nodded his head, as his aura dissipated. After which, Chu Wuwei once again departed the area. Chu Tianjiao's eyes flashed with a terrifying sharpness as he murmured in his heart. Although father never said it out loud, he always felt that I'm inferior to you in all aspects other than strength. I will prove it to you. In one of the courtyards of the royal clan of Chu, the Mo clan Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lo were all present. Before Dai was captured, they had no way of leaving the royal capital. Mo Qingqing had informed Old Gu and arranged for them to stay here. Someone's coming. Mustang, who was seated in a pavilion, abruptly opened his eyes. Was there still no way to escape after all? Luo Huan, Fan Lo, go to the lake, Mustang suddenly commanded. If I'm not here, they might suspect something. Fatty, go to the lake, there's still time. Luo Huan knew that her teacher's senses were extremely strong, and they shouldn't have been discovered yet. Fan Li's eyes flickered, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. After which he heavily nodded his head. Teacher, Sister Luo Huan, be careful. I will think of a way to save you. After speaking, Fan Li dived into the depths of the lake. Only by doing so would he be able to conceal his aura. Indeed, not long after, the courtyard was surrounded. When Mustang and Luo Huan saw a silhouette in front of them, their eyes turned incomparably cold. Qiu Mo, you traitor. Mustang coldly spat. A wise man submits to circumstances. Luckily, it wasn't difficult to find all of Mo Qingqing's residences. After searching through them one by one, I finally found her. Most probably, Qin Wentian has also been hidden by her. Qiumo's eyes flashed with a hint of jealousy. Mo Qingqing, the most perfect woman in Chu, was willing to risk her life for the sake of Qin Wentian. Normally, she would ignore him, one of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. Qiu, have you forgotten about Yi Wukei's ending? Luo Huan stared cold at Qiu Hihi. Qiumo's countenance turned frosty. He knew that Qin Wentian's strength had already surpassed him, and this caused him to be filled with jealousy. Luo Huan, although she isn't as beautiful as Mo Qingqing, she can still be considered one of the most beautiful women in the world. Look at that sexy figure of hers, hehe. Qiu Mo didn't conceal the greed in his eyes as he swept his gaze over Luo Huan's body. Luo Huan's countenance turned extremely unsightly. I will get the third prince, know his majesty, to bestow you to me. Qiu Mo didn't conceal his true nature. Even if he couldn't obtain Mo Qingqing, it was still a wonderful thing to obtain Luo Huan's body. I really want to see how long the emperor's authority can last. Mustang's voice was ice cold. Currently, the leaders of the Emperor Star Academy should have already met up with those from the Qin clan. The news of Mustang and Luo Huan being captured quickly circulated around the royal capital. This was undoubtedly the royal clan's own doing. They wanted Qin Wentian to appear. Chu Tianjiao had already viewed Qin Wentian as a huge threat. Such a character would definitely break through to Heavenly Dipper in the future. He had to die. And at the same time when Mustang and Luo Huan were captured, news circulated from the front lines. The Qin clan had formed a few elite troops, and they were invincible as they rapidly advanced towards the royal capital. There were rumors that these elite troops were the elites of all the troops under the Qin clan's control. Not only that, there were also many experts from the Emperor Star Academy, including the vice headmaster of the Emperor Star Academy. These people were all terrifying characters that could easily take the head of an enemy general. Naturally, the troops of the royal clan had no way to defend against them. Naturally, other than the experts from the Emperor Star Academy, in this war between the Qin clan and the royal clan, the Qin clan's troops had also displayed an astonishing level of strength. There were even many powerful Yuanfu cultivators among them. This was especially so for the elite troops that were currently advancing towards the royal clan. This caused people to faintly feel that the strength of the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City was only a small portion of their total strength. Maybe the all-powerful troops that followed Qin Wu all those years ago had never truly disappeared. Not only that, they had even nurtured many descendants. All of these undoubtedly indicated that the royal capital of Chu was about to welcome a violent storm. This storm was even more intense compared to the one between the royal clan and the Emperor Star Academy, because this time around, other than the Emperor Star Academy, the strength of the Qin clan was also starting to erupt. And just as this storm was brewing, the young man who was determined to take revenge stepped on a demonic beast whose eyes flickered with a golden light as he exited the dark forest and entered the royal capital. Chapter 206. In the royal palace of Chu, a storm was brewing. The hearts of the people trembled as they felt the terrifying pressure of the black clouds looming over the city. The Qin clan's troops broke through the defenses of many cities, advancing at a frenzied pace. Just as the Chu country's troops were about to move, the Qin clan's troops would suddenly change their route and advance towards another city. Not only that, the troops that broke through the encirclement of the Qin clan were all elites, and their speed was extremely fast, causing the defenses of the Chu country to be filled with flaws. Such a domineering attitude caused the people of Chu to truly feel the might of the Qin clan, which had been in seclusion for so many years. The people of Chu faintly understood why the royal clan was so insistent on making a move against the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City. Maybe they had long sensed it. The struggle for power was always so cold and complicated, filled with schemes and trickery. Even Qin Hao himself didn't hesitate to risk his life. Finally, the royal clan of Chu gave the order to relax their defenses. The troops that were stationed in the royal city were all retreated, while the elite troops were mobilized to the royal capital to guard the last line of defense. At the same time, the other troops were to be prepared to counterattack at any time. This was undoubtedly the declaration of the decisive battle between the two sides. Since the Qin clan had sent all their forces to advance towards the royal capital, the royal clan would naturally clash with the Qin clan in the royal capital. The entire Chu Dragon Guards went into a frenzy, as the elite troops all rushed towards the royal capital. For a period of time, the situation in the royal capital attracted the attention of countless people in Chu. This struggle for power, how would the ending be? At this moment, the confidence that the people of Chu had in the royal clan was no longer as strong as before. In fact, there were even some who suspected that the Chu clan, which had existed for over 3,000 years, would fall this time. Even before Qin Wentian stepped into the royal capital, he had already received all sorts of news. Hence, he disguised himself and snuck into the Divine Weapon Pavilion. And Liuyan's attitude towards him had always been very good, and she didn't really like the royal clan. In the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he already had extraordinary authority. Naturally, his arrival at the Divine Weapon Pavilion was a secret, and he didn't reveal it to anyone. After 7 days of closed-door seclusion, Qin Wentian utilized the immense manpower and resources of the Divine Weapon Pavilion to forge divine weapons. The hearts of the Grandmasters were all filled with waves of shock. They had never seen someone inscribing divine imprints in such a frenzied manner. It was as though the entire Divine Weapon Pavilion revolved around him. Qin Wentian naturally wouldn't let the Divine Weapon Pavilion suffer a loss. After frenziedly forging divine weapons, he left behind many treasures for the Divine Weapon Pavilion. There were even some precious third-rank divine weapons. At the same time, Liuyan contacted the Sky Transport Network, one of the 3 largest markets in Chu. After paying a huge sum of money, they were allowed to transport divine weapons out of the royal capital. Everything was carried out in secret. Of course, this time around the Sky Transport Network and the Divine Weapon Pavilion had reaped great benefits. In times of chaos, it was easier for them to maximize their benefits. The royal clan finally sensed that something was amiss, but it was already too late. The Sky Transport Network had already transported the divine weapons away, and Qin Wentian had also left the divine weapon pavilion. Now that the royal clan was already in a precarious situation, how would they dare to vent their anger on the divine weapon pavilion and the Sky Transport Network? After receiving the divine weapons transported by the Sky Transport Network, the elites of the Qin clan were like tigers that had grown wings. They madly advanced forward, and finally, all the elites of the Qin clan were stationed outside the royal capital. On top of the city walls, a row of experts stood shoulder to shoulder. The current emperor of Chu Tianjiao, stood atop the city walls, gazing into the distance. The number of experts stationed outside the royal capital was so vast that one couldn't see the end of them with a single glance. They were sharpening their blades, and their eyes were filled with a fiery light. That was a kind of fanaticism, a fanaticism for power, a fanaticism for revenge. As long as they could take down the last city, the Chu country would have a new ruler. Have you found Qin Wentian? Chu Tianjiao calmly asked. No one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Not yet. Someone behind him bowed as he replied. We've already monitored the movements of the Sky Transport Network and the Divine Weapon Pavilion. If Qin Wentian appears again, we'll definitely capture him. Announced the news. 3 days later, Mustang will be executed in the Chu Emperor District. Luo Huang will be given to Qiu Mo, Chu Tianjiao calmly stated. The person behind him respectfully replied, I'll handle it immediately. After which, the person bowed and retreated, departing the area. It seemed like the emperor was forced into a corner. Who would have thought that Qin Wentian, who was wanted by the royal clan, would actually give such a huge gift to the troops of the Qin clan? This was extremely disadvantageous to the royal clan. Very quickly, the news spread throughout the royal capital. 3 days later, at the place where Qin Wentian's name shook the entire Chu country, the royal clan would execute Qin Wentian's master, Mustang, and also give Luo Huan to Qiu Mo. This news caused Qiu Mo to be extremely unhappy. His reputation had been completely ruined, but when he thought of Luo Huan, he decided that after this matter was concluded, he would leave Chu. In the bamboo hut, the flowing river water was quiet and serene. Qin Wentian sat by the riverside, as Mo Qingqing quietly sat beside him. Naturally, she had also received the news, and was extremely unhappy with Qin Wentian in her heart. Chu Tianjiao actually dared to use Mustang and Luo Huan to threaten Qin Wentian. From this, one could see how unscrupulous Chu Tianjiao was. Such a royal clan of Chu was truly on the verge of collapse. At this moment, Qin Wentian stood up and walked back, arriving at the grass hut. Here a veiled maiden quietly sat there, as though she had always been here. Upon seeing Qin Wentian walking over, she inclined her head, as her limpid eyes stared at Qin Wentian. However, she gave off an aura of coldness. Qin Wentian had always known that there would be such a character following him. Even when he entered the dark forest, she was still as clean and elegant as ever. This caused Qin Wentian to speculate. How strong was she exactly? Fairy Qingmei sent you here? Qin Wentian stared at her as he asked in a low voice. The maiden only stared at him, not saying a word. Qin Wentian saw the helplessness in her eyes as he asked again. In the past, weren't you always protecting me in the shadows? Why are you so close to me now? That pair of eyes continued to stare at him, yet she remained silent. Sorry for disturbing you. Qin Wentian turned and departed. There are many people watching this place. I have to ensure your safety. A melodious voice rang out. Qin Wentian turned his head, and a smile appeared on his face as he stared at that pair of beautiful eyes. In that case, will you help me deal with the others? Qin Wentian asked. The maiden lightly shook her head. Qin Wentian still exuded a cold and unapproachable feeling. Okay. Qin Wentian laughed. My name is Qin Wentian, what about you? The eyelashes of the maiden flickered, as though she was considering for a moment. After which, she inclined her head and stared at Qin Wentian. Qing. What a nice name. Qin Wentian smiled at Qing before turning and departing. Mo Qingqing, upon seeing Qin Wentian walking over, teased. Who do you think is more beautiful, her or me? Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. When he and Mo Qingqing were in the Celestial Lake Palace, they had both seen Qing's original appearance. Her beauty was breathtaking. Qing Er's beauty was different from Emo Qingqing's. Emo Qingqing's beauty was graceful, gentle, and filled with youthful vitality. Qing Er's beauty was more refined, cold, like a celestial maiden in the mortal world. Are you jealous? Qin Wentian laughed. Humph. Emo Qingqing rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian. However, seeing that Qin Wentian's mood had improved, she was also happy. At this moment, not far away, a figure slowly walked over to Qin Wentian's side. How is it? Qin Wentian calmly asked. Quite a few people are willing to participate. The pavilion lord wants me to ask you. How many people do you want to hire? The other party asked. How strong are the people we can hire? Qin Wentian asked again. Based on the value of the divine weapon you inscribed, we should be able to contact about 20 mid-tier Yuanfu cultivators. 20 then. 30 low-tier Yuanfu cultivators. First I'll give them a low-tier, third-rank divine weapon, and let them choose freely. The divine weapon pavilion will pay for them on my behalf. There shouldn't be any problems, right? Qin Wentian asked in a low voice. We will arrange it. That person nodded his head. Do you have any other instructions? Borrow the power of the intelligence network. Regardless of the cost, help me find out the movements of the important figures of the Chu royal clan, including their meals and daily activities. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. Okay. Every once in a while, there will be people reporting to me. Also, the movements here are all under our control. If there are any movements, we will immediately send someone to inform you to evacuate and prepare a new location. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He knew that a terrifying net had already been weaved here. This was also what Qing had said earlier. There were many people watching this place. I'll take my leave first. That person bowed and retreated. Although his countenance was calm, his heart was filled with shock. This was the most outstanding divine inscriptionist in the history of Chu. Using his talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions, he obtained the support of the divine weapon pavilion. This time around, no one knew how the storm in Chu would develop. This was a gamble filled with uncertainties. In the blink of an eye, the 3 days Chu Tianjiao spoke of arrived. Today the Chu Emperor district was garrisoned with a large number of soldiers. Not only that, some of these ordinary characters were actually extremely tyrannical. On the battle platform below the azure jadeite dragon throne, Mustang was tied up. His robes were dyed red with fresh blood, and his hair was incomparably disheveled. Evidently, he had suffered a lot in the past few days. Luo Huan was also extremely haggard. Her face was still adorned with a seductive smile. And when her gaze swept past Chiao Mo couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Very soon you will be mine. Chiao Mo stared at Luo Huan's voluptuous breasts, the lust in his eyes unmasked. Now that his reputation in Chu had been completely ruined, he became even more brazen and unbridled, revealing his malevolent face. Luo Huan laughed, a laugh that caused Chiao Mo to feel a piercing pain in his bones. Chiao Mo, do you believe that you will die miserably? Luo Huan giggled. Chiao Mo coldly snorted. You are truly stubborn. Tonight, I will let you taste the benefits of being stubborn. Staring at Luo Huan's alluring figure, Chiao Mo's heart pounded. Why isn't His Majesty here yet? Chiao Mo's gaze shifted in the direction of the azure jadeite dragon throne. Today, why wasn't Chu Tianjiao here? At this moment, Chiao Mo discovered that several people were starting to stir. These people were all experts that he had arranged to ensure that Qin Wentian wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. The troops of the Qin clan are attacking the city. A voice drifted into Chiao Mo's ears, causing him to be stunned. The timing of the Qin clan's attack was so accurate. Outside the royal capital, the sounds of battle shook the heavens. The people in the royal capital could feel a terrifying pressure permeating the atmosphere. There were even some Yuanfu cultivators that directly soared through the air, killing their way into the royal capital. The army outside the city had launched the toughest attack on the Chu Kingdom's imperial city. Chapter 207. At the entrance of the royal capital, A blood-colored light flooded the skies as a chaotic aura enveloped the entire space. Chu Tianjiao calmly stood atop the city gate, with several experts standing guard behind him. Qingwu. His gaze seemed to penetrate through space as Chu Tianjiao stared at a silhouette on the ground in front of him. That person was clad in armor, and his eyes shone with a bright light. Similarly, his gaze penetrated through the rain of blood, landing on Chu Tianjiao. From Qinhao, Chu Tianjiao could clearly sense that he was extremely shrewd and scheming. After enduring for so many years, Qinhao had always been hiding in the Sky Harmony City. Yet he was still able to control the operations of such a huge organization. Such a character was definitely extremely terrifying. But from Chu Tianjiao, Qinhao could sense a completely different aura. Chu Tianjiao's aura was extremely sharp. Chu Tianjiao, who was the emperor of Chu, radiated an intense sharpness. He wanted to pacify Chu, to prove that he, Chu Tianjiao, was capable of doing so. For this goal, no matter what price he had to pay, he wouldn't hesitate. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't know that in a pavilion not far away from the royal capital, a white-robed figure was staring in the direction of the royal capital, with a look of disappointment on his face. This person was none other than the first prince, Chu Wuwei. Naturally, the current him was no longer the first prince, and Chu Tianjiao had yet to confer him the title of emperor. On both sides of Chu Wuwei, there were two people. One of them was his younger brother, Chu Mang. The other was ranked third among the 10 prodigies, Immortal Drunken Wine. He had always been good friends with Chu Wuwei. Do you have any thoughts on this? Immortal Drunken Wine asked in a low voice. Third brother, he's too impatient. Chu Wuwei calmly replied. This is definitely not a good thing. Such an extreme method is his style, swift and decisive. If he wins, he'll be able to pacify everything. But if he loses, he'll lose everything. Why not replace him? Immortal Drunken Wine calmly spoke, as though he was speaking of an extremely ordinary matter. He had always known that this good friend of his was an outstanding character. As long as he willed it, the struggle for power in Chu would end with his victory. With regards to this, Immortal Drunken Wine had no doubts. If I really can't control the situation, I'll consider it. Chu Wuwei calmly replied. I promised my father that the Chu clan must not be destroyed. Let's go take a look at the situation at the Chu Emperor District. Since they are attacking the city with all their might, there should be people moving there. Chu Wuwei turned and departed the area, with Chu Mang and Immortal Drunken Wine following behind him. They naturally believed that the Chu Emperor District would make a move. But even if they could think of this, how could Chu Tianjiao not think of it? Then what about Qin Wentian? How could he not think of it? The current Qin Wentian was no longer the simple young man of the past. The royal palace of Chu was exceedingly calm. Occasionally, there would be people rushing into the royal palace to report the military situation. The battle outside the royal palace had attracted the attention of everyone. Undoubtedly, the royal palace was the most concerned about this. Outside the high walls of the palace, the soldiers were standing guard. However, at this moment, a loud shout suddenly rang out. Enemy attack! The voice instantly broke the silence outside the palace. The group of soldiers looked outside, and saw a group of masked men in black rushing over. Their speed was terrifyingly fast. None of them released their astral souls. However, when the black-robed cultivators advanced in the air, the countenances of the Yuanfu cultivators all turned ashen. All of them were at the Yuanfu realm, and they knew that death was the only path left for them. Puchi sounds rang out, and very quickly, the ground was left with a rain of blood. The group of black-robed men leaped and stepped into the imperial palace. However, at the same time, the people on the watchtower in the imperial palace had already noticed the commotion here. They sent out a black smoke signal, and in an instant, the imperial palace was in chaos. The experts guarding the imperial palace all rushed towards the direction of the smoke signal. How many years had it been since the royal palace of Chu was invaded? But today it was. Not only that, the timing was so precise. Today, a battle of life and death was taking place outside the royal palace, and there were too many experts there. Who dares to be so audacious? A thunderous voice boomed out. Even if the battle was taking place outside the royal palace, there were still sufficient guards within the royal palace. Naturally, there was no lack of Yuanfu experts. But at the same time, a silhouette soared through the air, exuding a fearsome aura. Similarly, this person was also a peak-level Yuanfu expert. This made many people realize that this sneak attack had been planned meticulously. The Watermoon Pavilion was the residence of the little princess of Chu. Because of the chaos in the royal palace, she didn't casually roam around. However, when the little princess of Chu saw a group of masked men in black rushing over, she knew that the storm in Chu this time around was even more terrifying than what she had imagined. These people had long since investigated the location of her residence, and they also knew that among the princesses of the royal palace, her residence was the closest to the royal palace. Little princess, quickly leave. A serving girl stepped forward, as she spoke to the little princess. I won't be able to leave. The little princess shook her head. Third brother used Mustang to threaten Qin Wentian. Now, there's someone who wants to use the same method to deal with him. I'm sure that the Chu Emperor District and the Royal Palace have no idea what's going on here. Although she was young, she was extremely intelligent. Today, the battle outside the Royal Palace as well as the Chu Emperor District had mobilized too many experts, causing the Royal Palace to be completely empty. Not only that, the enemy had over 50 experts, and all of them were at the Yuanfu realm. There were even some at the peak of Yuanfu. When such a group of experts gathered together and launched an attack, how could the current strength of the royal palace defend against them? Unless they gathered all the remaining forces within the royal palace. However, by that time, the enemy would have already left. The little princess was quickly abducted by the group of masked men. Not only that, when the enemy retreated, not many dared to obstruct them. This caused the hearts of the people within the royal palace to be filled with fear. They were currently experiencing an unprecedented defeat. However, they were also pondering, who was it that had the ability to mobilize such a terrifying force to battle? If such a force was deployed outside the royal palace, it would be sufficient to change the outcome of the battle. Demonic beasts immediately flew out from the royal palace, frenziedly making their way outside the royal palace, as well as in the direction of the Chu Emperor District. Not long after, the news of the abduction of the little princess began to spread, and in a very short period of time, it had already spread far and wide. In the Chu Emperor District, the hearts of the people trembled. The countenances of the crowd on the viewing platform were all ashen. Many experts from the Yi clan were present as well. Today, they had laid out an inescapable net, preparing to take Qin Wentian's life. But now, the little princess had actually been abducted. How were they supposed to execute Mustang? At this moment, not far away from the Chu Emperor District, a silhouette slowly walked over. Upon seeing this silhouette, the gazes of the countless people in the Chu Emperor District all froze. Qin Wentian had finally appeared. Nobody obstructed Qin Wentian's path. Behind him, there were still a few people following behind him. As he walked towards Mustang and Luo Huan, an apologetic look could be seen in his eyes. Teacher, Sister Luo Huan, I've caused you to suffer. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, as though there was no one else present. I knew you would come. Luo Huan giggled, as a light smile hung on her face. She didn't know why, but she was filled with confidence towards this junior brother of hers, who wasn't considered to be very strong. Luo Huan glanced at Qiu Mo beside her, as an unmasked look of mockery flashed in her eyes. Qiu Mo, didn't you say that you wanted to kill junior brother Qin? He's right there, go ahead. Qiu Mo's countenance stiffened, as he stared at Qin Wentian. A malevolent light flickered in his eyes, as though there was a deep hatred between him and Qin Wentian. His Majesty has ordered that if Qin Wentian appears, he shall be killed without mercy. Qiu Mo glanced at the people on his left and right, before raising his head to look at the silhouettes in the viewing platform. However, nobody moved. Those experts only moved closer to Mustang and Luo Huan, as they coldly stared at Qin Wentian. Yet, nobody dared to make a move. Is the little princess in your hands? An old man's eyes were as sharp as swords, as he stared at Qin Wentian. What do you think? Qin Wentian stared at him, as he calmly replied. What do you want? The old man stared at Qin Wentian as he asked, "Change the person?" Qin Wentian simply replied. However, the old man fell silent. Chu Tianjiao was currently the emperor of Chu. His order was to kill Qin Wentian without mercy. If they missed this opportunity, it would be even more difficult to kill Qin Wentian in the future. Hence, today he personally took charge of this gathering, in order to prevent Qin Wentian from bringing more experts with him. "I'm unable to agree to your request," the old man faintly stated. He needed to wait for Chu Tianjiao's order. "I won't wait, and I don't have the time to play with you. Within the time it takes for an incense to burn, if you don't release them, you will bear the consequences," Qin Wentian domineeringly stated. Initially, he didn't want to use such methods. However, this was what Chu Tianjiao had taught him. Since Chu Tianjiao dared to use Mustang and Luo Huan to threaten him, from now onwards, for the sake of annihilating Chu, he would do anything. The old man fell silent, as he stared at Qin Wentian. "If anything happens to the little princess, you will have to accompany her to the grave. You overestimate yourself too much." Qin Wentian stepped out, his gaze landing on Qiu Mo as he walked towards him. The black-robed men beside him followed behind Qin Wentian. Yi Luyang stared at Qin Wentian, his eyes filled with an extreme coldness. This brat actually dared to enter the tiger's den? Wasn't he too audacious? Wasn't he worried that the royal clan would disregard the consequences and kill him? A lithe and graceful silhouette abruptly appeared not far away from Qin Wentian, like a shadow. However, earlier, nobody had seen her before. Such a scene caused the pupils of the old man to narrow. He stared at the lithe and graceful silhouette, as though he wanted to see through her. A clear and cold aura, an aura that pushed people 1,000 miles away. She was like an otherworldly maiden. Just by standing there, she gave off an intense sense of danger. Qin Wentian laughed. Upon sensing Qing Er's appearance, he actually felt a sense of security in his heart. Maybe Qing Er's strength would truly give him a huge surprise. He continued walking towards Qiu Mo, and even walked past the old man. However, nobody dared to make a move. "How do you want to die?" Qin Wentian stared at Qiu Mo. At this moment, Qiu Mo's astral soul erupted as he roared in rage. "Why aren't you guys killing him yet?" Nobody bothered with him. Qin Wentian's footsteps flickered as he grabbed towards Qiu Mo. Qiu Mo's countenance drastically changed. With a howl of rage, a powerful attack blasted towards Qin Wentian. However, when Qin Wentian's arm landed, Qiu Mo felt an irresistible force boring down on his body. Gotcha! Qiu Mo's palms were directly broken. Qin Wentian's hand was still clutching onto his throat as he dragged Qiu Mo to the ground, as though he was dragging a dead dog. At this moment, Qin Wentian's killing intent gushed forth in a frenzy, causing Qiu Mo to feel a sense of terror that originated from the depths of his soul. "Sister Luo Huan, how do you want him to die?" Qin Wentian laughed as he asked Luo Huan. Chapter 208. Traces of a smile could be seen on Luo Huan's face as she shifted her gaze onto Qiu Mo, whose throat was being held by Qin Wentian. "I'm afraid you won't have the chance to let me have a taste of the benefits of being stubborn tonight." Luo Huan spoke to Qiu Mo. However, the words she spat out gave Qin Wentian a feeling of extreme coldness. This made Qin Wentian understand that Qiu Mo had said many humiliating words to his sister Luo Huan. He had never felt such coldness from the cheerful Luo Huan before. Qin Wentian's palm abruptly trembled as a cracking sound rang out. After which, Qiu Mo let out a howl of agony. One of his arms had been crippled by Qin Wentian, and was now hanging limply by his side. "Sis, why don't we make him suffer a fate worse than death?" Qin Wentian smiled at Luo Huan. However, his smile was similarly cold. From the Sky Harmony City all the way here, his heart gradually grew colder and colder. These people had forced him to the point where his heart was made of stone, forcing him to be ruthless and merciless. "You decide." Luo Huan's gaze turned gentle. The feeling of being protected by someone truly felt good. Although this person was only his junior brother, Luo Huan truly liked him from the bottom of his heart. Naturally, this wasn't the love between a man and a woman, but rather, It was an indescribable feeling. Don't. Cold sweat seeped out of Chiu Mo's forehead. Of course, he knew what Qin Wentian meant by living a life worse than death. A cold glint of light abruptly shot towards Chiu Mo. As a pair of eyes as sharp as blades caused Chiu Mo to shiver involuntarily. Qin Wentian's palms shot out, slamming into Chiu Mo's chest as a surge of energy gushed forth, instantly destroying all the meridians in his body. At the same time, Qin Wentian lifted his leg and stomped towards Chiu Mo's crotch. Seeing Chiu Mo lying on the ground like a pile of mud, the people in the surroundings all stared at the youth who was once a youth. Right now, Qin Wentian, who was about to turn 18, seemed to have already grown up. Mustang had a warm smile on his face. Qin Wentian's ruthlessness and decisiveness made Mustang feel gratified. Being ruthless to one's enemies was a necessary process for one to grow up in this martial world. Qin Wentian no longer glanced at Chiu Mo. He inclined his head and stared at Mustang and Luo Huan, who were still tied up. Beside them, there were several experts who could act at any moment. But at this moment, Qin Wentian suddenly wanted to give it a try. For the sake of Teacher Mustang and Sis Luo Huan, he wanted to take the risk. If anything happens to Teacher Mustang and Sis Luo Huan, immediately issue the order to execute the royal princess. Qin Wentian's ice-cold voice resounded throughout the entire space. After which he lifted his feet and walked towards Mustang and Luo Huan. The black-robed figures behind him were all stunned. They lifted their feet, only to see Qin Wentian waving his hands, causing their countenances to stiffen as they stared at Qin Wentian. This fellow was too risky. What if these people really wanted to kill Qin Wentian? They wouldn't even have the chance to save him. Qin Wentian was also gambling. He wasn't trying to stop others, but he was betting on the strength of the expert sent by Fairy Qingmei to protect him. Qin Wentian didn't know why, but for some reason, she made Qin Wentian trust her so much. She didn't speak much, and would rarely appear by Qin Wentian's side. But at crucial moments, she would definitely be there. Not only that, even if they took a step back, and Qing Er's strength wasn't strong enough, the little princess of Chu was still in his hands. Without Chu Tianjiao's command, these people would definitely not dare to kill him. Stop right there. The old man stared at Qin Wentian. His voice was ice-cold. Killing intent gushed forth from him, pressing down on Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian merely glanced at him, as he continued walking forward. Wentian. An expression of astonishment appeared on Luo Huan's face. Had this fellow gone mad? She didn't wish for Qin Wentian to use such a method to deal with her. To Qin Wentian, this was too dangerous. Go back. Mustang directly berated. His talent was limited, and his future achievements could be foreseen. But Qin Wentian was different. He had accepted many disciples, but Qin Wentian was undoubtedly the most outstanding among them. Naturally, he didn't wish for anything to happen to Qin Wentian. In fact, Mustang had pinned his hopes on Qin Wentian, the hope of the Emperor Star Academy. He still hoped that one day, the Emperor Star Academy would be able to stand tall once again. How wonderful would that be? Qin Wentian stared at Mustang as he laughed. The distance between him and the old man got closer and closer, only a few steps away. The coldness that descended upon him grew increasingly intense, yet he still continued walking forward. An intense astral wind buffeted Qin Wentian's body, as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from the old man. However, not far behind Qin Wentian, Qing Er's footsteps also shifted slightly. Sensing the killing intent emanating from Qin Wentian, her brows furrowed. You are truly courting death. The old man coldly stared at Qin Wentian, as he slowly lifted his palms. Qin Wentian continuously took 2 steps forward, arriving beside Luo Huan, as he prepared to undo the chains binding her. Rumble. The killing intent emanating from the old man completely erupted, as he pushed his palms forwards. But at the same instant, a beam of light flashed, and Qin Wentian only felt a gust of wind blowing past him. Pooh! A light sound rang out, as the body of the old man was flung through the air. After which, a thunderous sound echoed out, as his body ruthlessly slammed into the azure jadeite dragon seat of the Chu Emperor district. In that instant, the spectators were all dumbstruck, as they stared at the scene before them. How is this possible? The spectators stared at the silhouette of the beautiful silhouette that had repelled the old man. Her face was covered by a veil, yet it was unable to conceal her unparalleled charm. She seemed to be otherworldly, and was so cold that it gave people the feeling that she wasn't from this world. She looked so young, yet how fast was her speed? So fast that even the eyes of the spectators couldn't follow her movements. She was so fast that the powerful Yuanfu realm cultivator was flung through the air with a single strike. The person in charge of the Chu Emperor district didn't even have the time to retaliate before he was injured. However, it was as though nothing had happened. She casually glanced at the old man, and her eyelashes flickered, as though she was frowning, as though she was looking at the old man with displeasure. "I won't allow you to touch him." A melodious voice rang out, as though there was a unique magnetism to it, as well as a hint of coldness. Not only that, there were even traces of innocence in her voice. Upon hearing this melodious voice, Qin Wentian really wanted to hug Qing tightly. What an adorable woman! What a pity, she was only responsible for his safety, and wouldn't help him deal with the people of Chu. However, with such a supreme expert protecting him, Qin Wentian was truly grateful, especially at this moment. Evidently his gamble had paid off. When the people guarding Mustang and Luo Huan saw how easily Qing had repelled the old man, they subconsciously retreated a distance away. No one dared to act rashly, and could only watch as Qin Wentian released the shackles on Luo Huan and Mustang. "We consumed the origin sealing powder. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid that you wouldn't show up, they would have crippled our cultivation bases." Luo Huan bitterly smiled. Qin Wentian finally understood why the shackles were able to bind his teacher and sis. Bzzz. All of a sudden, a silhouette dashed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian didn't even move, he only supported Mustang and Luo Huan as they walked back. Boom. Another intense rumbling sound rang out. Qing had sent the expert who had just attacked flying, using the same method she had used against the old man earlier. Her brows furrowed even more, seeming to be very dissatisfied with the result. "If you guys continue to act like this, I will really kill you." That crisp sound rang out once again, causing Qin Wentian to almost burst out laughing. Hearing Qing's tone, it gave off the impression that Qin Wentian was being bullied. If these people continued to bully Qin Wentian, she would definitely kill them. The old man wiped the traces of blood from the corner of his mouth as he stared at Qing. His countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. Qing was still as carefree as ever. Seeing the old man staring at her, she furrowed her brows and replied, "I don't like people looking at me like this." Cough cough. The old man was so angered that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at her? She was so domineering, yet he couldn't even look at her? Not only that, her voice gave off the impression that she was the one who was being bullied. What kind of freakish beauty was this? To think that she was so strong that even the old man was injured by Qing. Yet he couldn't even tell how strong Qing was. Qin Wentian brought Mustang and Luo Huan with him as they flew away, leaving the people behind to stare at each other in dismay. Their silhouettes flickered, only to see several black-robed figures appearing, surrounding Qin Wentian in the middle of a protective formation. Qing also turned and followed behind Qin Wentian. For a moment, no one dared to stop them. Such a strange scene might sound ridiculous, but it had actually happened. "Qing, you are so adorable." Qin Wentian smiled at Qing as he noticed Qing walking to his side. Qing's beautiful eyes flashed with contemplation as she stared at Qin Wentian. Only after a long time did she reply in a low voice, "Adorable? Is that good or bad?" Qin Wentian stumbled as he fell to the ground. He stared at Qing as though he was looking at a monster. He was truly convinced. "Of course it's good, it means extremely good." Qin Wentian spoke as though he was coaxing a girl. Qing still didn't understand. Her aura was as cold as ever, but she still nodded her head lightly. "Adorable, it means extremely good." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.